Throughout the history of the internet, there have been many faux pas, many hiccups and mistakes, leading to banned, lost, or deleted content. In this compilation video, we'll be taking an intense look at the latter of those, deleted content. Media uploaded to the internet that for one reason or another had to be taken down by its own creator shortly after it went live. From YouTube to Twitter to a hell of a load of TikTok, I have hours of tales of deleted content to share with you. This is the internet's infamous deleted content. "17 years, 11 months, 5 days. That's how long it's been since Me at the Zoo was uploaded, becoming YouTube's very first video. YouTube as a platform is very nearly an adult now, and in this time it's become home to potentially 1 billion videos or maybe even more. Most of these videos will go relatively unseen, unremembered by the masses and uncared for by its viewers. But of course, a small handful will be watched and spoken about, for better or for worse. Some of these videos will be life-changing, and some of them will be such a mistake that even their creators will go back on them, erasing them from existence and trying to make it seem like they never happened at all. In this video, we're working backwards in time to talk about some of YouTube's most infamous deleted content. Content that was either deleted by the creators or by YouTube itself, including the very earliest deleted video that was uploaded mere minutes after Me at the Zoo. So without further ado, let's talk about some of the most infamous and fascinating deleted videos of all time. And we're going to start off with one that's quite recent and also one of the most famous ever, that being Alan Walker's no copyright sound songs. You guys must know Alan Walker, right? He's been described as a DJ/producer phenom, creating wildly popular trap, house, and electronic music. He has more than 24 million monthly listens on Spotify, he has the most subscribed YouTube channel in Norway, and he's taken in over 12 billion views on YouTube throughout all of his videos. One of the largest sources of these views might have come from his work with No Copyright Sounds, one of the biggest channels in the world with more than 33 million subscribers. His songs on No Copyright Sounds raked in literally hundreds of millions of views, but Alan Walker was really the golden child of the channel because compared to any other musician they ever featured, Alan Walker was consistently getting the highest amounts of views. He released 3 songs on the channel, those being Force, Spectre, and of course, Faded. These songs were wildly popular, with Force apparently taking in over 100 million views, then Spectre garnering somewhere in the 200 to 300 million views range, and last but of course not least, Fade being the most popular video on the No Copyright Sounds channel because before its erasure it had 444 million views. But of course, by watching this video, you know that these songs are no longer on YouTube. I mean, they are. If you look up Faded, you can now see that the music video is sitting at 3.4 billion views. But in November 2021, 6 years after first collaborating with each other, Alan Walker's contract having his songs up on NCS was expired, and the two parties couldn't come together to forge a new one. When the two first got together, NCS was still in its infancy, and Alan Walker was nowhere near as large as he is today. It seemed like quite the ideal match, and without NCS, who's to say that Faded, Spectre, or Force would have become quite as successful? And it worked the other way around too, because let me remind you that these songs were huge for NCS. You can still see re-uploads on YouTube that are trying to mimic the style and branding of NCS, and let me remind you again that these songs are not gone from YouTube entirely, just the original versions on No Copyright Sounds. These are all now deleted. But that's a small story compared to our next one, because our next channel had all of their past videos deleted. I'm talking about Super JoJo, and unless you're a parent, you probably haven't heard of them before. This channel had more than 20 million subscribers, was one of the top 25 animation channels on the platform, and would have been getting a fair amount of money from YouTube. But in September 2021, they would be terminated from the platform, with all of their videos being lost to the void. And in the process, they became one of, if not the largest channel to have ever been forcefully deleted. And let me tell you right now, the reason why is extremely fascinating. So let's discuss the sequence of events that led to the termination of Super JoJo. I've actually spoken about YouTube Kids content before in the past, quite recently actually, but this story must have slipped through the cracks. To set the scene, I think that CoComelon needs very little introduction. They're the largest kids channel on YouTube, they have 156 million subscribers, they might negatively impact your child's development, the science is still out on that. But it's fair to say that even though they just repackage old nursery rhymes for their content, at the very least, outside of the songs which are public domain anyway, their work is original. But we're going to play a little game right now. I'm going to show you a CoComelon baby and a Super JoJo baby, and you have to tell me which one is which. Yeah, eerily similar, aren't they? And you probably know now where I'm going with this. The reason why Super JoJo was terminated was that they had been allegedly infringing on CoComelon's copyrights. CoComelon took the Boo Boo song as an example, as though when you're listening to this song, you can tell that each version is different. CoComelon's is much slower compared to Super JoJo's, and the two have fairly different lyrics, but just by looking at the animation, one is clearly modelled after the other. They have the same shots, the same zooms, the exact same scenarios, there's no question about it. The whole situation caused CoComelon to pursue legal action, where they claimed that sometimes Super JoJo would copy them frame for frame, and if you took the Boo Boo song for an example, it's hard to say that they were wrong. The document that described this was more than 20 pages in length, and one of the arguments was that Super JoJo found this copying to be extremely lucrative. Baby Bus Network, the Chinese company that owns Super JoJo, had reported revenues of over $100 million the year prior to the deletion of Super JoJo's videos, and this all culminated in Super JoJo having its channel terminated by YouTube due to multiple third-party claims of copyright infringement. You might be surprised to hear, however, that Super JoJo is now back on YouTube on a channel that was created on the 24th of March 2021. Perhaps they knew that they were soon to be deleted and so planned ahead. This new channel has almost 3 million subscribers and has generated roughly 80 million views so far. One of the key differences this time around though is that it has human hosts, or at the very least it did at a point in time. They stopped uploading for about a year before coming back a few weeks ago, and their content seems to once again be reverted back to purely animated stuff. So time will only tell if this time they stay out of trouble. So heading back to perhaps a different era of YouTube now, the year is 2019, and Machinima, one of the largest channels on the site, has mysteriously had its entire back catalogue disappear. If you're my age, you've definitely heard of them, but if you're a bit younger, you might not have, so let me give you a quick rundown on who they are. Machinima were a gaming network created by Hugh Hancock in the year 2000. If you've been on the platform for a while, you would know that back in the early days, it was very difficult to monetize your videos, especially if you were a gaming channel. Back then, only 15 years ago, copyright laws when it came to games were a lot different to how they are now, and people were hit with strikes and sometimes even had their channels taken down for merely playing a video game. If you were an old school gaming YouTuber before the year 2012, you would essentially have to join a network because the YouTube Partner Program just wasn't around at the time. There wasn't any apparatus to monetize your content. And that's where Machinima came in, as they had the tools to prevent gaming companies from trying to take your content down, as well as the tools to monetize your vids. On top of this, it was instantly one of the largest channels on the site, and so it made sense for creators to sign their 3-year deal and hop on there because your content could now be potentially seen by a way larger audience than you'd have on your own channel. Just sign the contract, give away 40% of your ad revenue, and live the dream. Yeah, did I mention that you can only keep 60% of the revenue that your content made? Machinima was an MCN, and if you've heard of the term, you know that they tend to be bad news. This was something that Pyrocynical, PewDiePie, Ross Boomsocks, as well as countless others would find out the hard way. And I don't want to drag this story on too long because it was evident that Machinima was eventually going to fail. Once monetization became more widespread on YouTube, it was only a matter of time. Once gamers could take control of their revenue, Machinima had an appointment booked with the Reaper. And day by day in the mid-2010s, creators' contracts would expire and Machinima would lose a little more money, and a little more, and by January 2019, it was too much. Machinima at that point had uploaded more than 26,000 videos, but had them all erased and laid off 81 employees. These days, if you go to Machinima's channel, you'll see that they're still one of the most subscribed in the world. They still have 11.6 million subs, but no content. The only thing left up on their channel is a playlist titled Minecraft The Noob Adventures, and so in January 2019, that was where Machinima left us. Going back even further now, I'm about to bring up a name that you probably haven't thought about in roughly 8 years, and that name is Nicole Arbour. If you don't know who this woman is, consider yourself lucky. But if you do know her, surely you'll know about her viral rant video, Dear Fat People. What you might not know, however, is that if you head onto her channel today, you'll notice that this video is no longer there. So what was it? Why was it so controversial, and why is it now deleted? It was September 2015 when this video was uploaded to YouTube, and though you can see re-uploads of it today, you'll notice that there are a ton of responses online from fat and skinny people alike. It's also got a lot of responses from online news articles such as The Guardian, The Times, and the Daily Mail. If you've never seen the video, it's a 6-minute sequence of jokes which seem to be much more of a roasting session or a rant. She's unashamedly blunt. She was honest with her opinions, and so to some, she was finally the person who had the guts to say what others were thinking about fat people, and to others, she seemed cruel and hurtful. Just in case you haven't seen it or you've forgotten what this video was about, I'm going to play a few clips now so you can get a little flavour for what kind of things were being said.
Are you gonna tell the doctor that they're being mean and fat shaming you when they say you have fucking heart disease? Big boned isn't a thing. Fat shaming. Who came up with that? That's fucking brilliant. Yes, shame people who have bad habits until they fucking stop. Fat shaming. I don't feel bad for you because you are taking your body for granted.
So yeah, personally, I always found Nicole Arbour to be quite unfunny. She seemed to me a bit like Sweet D from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But even having said that, the reception in the comments section of the re-upload that I found was a lot more positive than I remember it being a couple of years back. Just taking a look at the comments, if we take the jokes aside and just look at the message she was sending, some people seem to think that she had no leg to stand on, perhaps she had always been skinny and never had to deal with weight problems. Some people are saying that what she said was invalid, or that some of her points, such as encouraging fat shaming, is dangerous. Again, this is a roast or a rant, she is being sincere in this video. Others, however, have taken a different approach to it, and I've actually seen a fair amount of comments that have claimed that years down the road, it was this video that had an impact on them, helping them get their weight back on track. These people claim that their friends and family had a difficult time communicating this to them, and so it was this video that was a sobering reality to help their weight loss. And I thought to myself for a while why there was such a more positive reaction to the re-upload compared to the original 8 years prior. Perhaps in the time since the original video dropped, there have been societal changes where people are now more willing to be blunt with obese people, but more likely in my opinion is that people are seeking out this video now, and you wouldn't likely seek out a video that you hated, but you would for one that you agreed with. And that leaves us with the million-dollar question, which is, why was Dear Fat People deleted? And the answer is, I don't know. My assumption would be that this video was deemed as bullying and was removed by YouTube itself, because in the years since this video dropped, YouTube have become a bit more slap happy in removing this kind of content. To the best of my knowledge, Nicole Arbour has never come out to explain what happened to it, but it is a bit strange. After the success of Dear Fat People, Arbour made a bit of a series out of it, creating videos such as Dear Black People, Dear Feminists, Dear Parents, and Dear Refugees. Yeah, that last one sounds a bit dicey, but these videos are all still up on Arbour's channel. Arbour herself seems quite similar in attitude to how she was back then, so I don't think that she took it down because she's changed her opinions dramatically. No videos or articles were made about the deletion because I assume by the time it was removed, the video was just an afterthought in people's minds. I think this is the first video covering it. But if you want a timestamp on when the video was removed, I looked at the re-uploader's channel on Social Blade, and the Dear Fat People is by far his most popular. So I would guess that at some point in mid-June of 2022, either Arbour deleted her video or it was removed by YouTube, because there's a clear rise in views at this point. But as you'll come to discover throughout the rest of this video, there have been so many classic videos such as this that changed the landscape of YouTube for better or for worse, whose original versions have now been deleted forever. I suppose that's just the way it is. Once again, we're heading back to an earlier era of YouTube now. This next video is more than a decade old, so there'll be a good chunk of you guys, myself included, that prior to this would have never heard of this next video before. And though it didn't leave as much of a mark on the internet like a lot of the other ones we're speaking about today, it did cause just as much outrage at the time. This was Rick Perry's Strong advertisement. The year was 2011, and Barack Obama was in the early stages of his re-election campaign, and a number of Republicans sought to be on the ticket to try and take him down. Yeah, leave it to the British guy to try and explain this election. This election in particular seemed a bit more bitter than the one previous. I mean, don't get me wrong, this was nothing compared to the past 2 elections, but there were some people like Rick Perry who thought that the past 4 years under Obama had been a travesty. Perry, for those of you who don't know, is a now 73-year-old Republican politician who served as the governor of Texas for 15 years between 2000 and 2015. He was also the Secretary of Energy from 2017 to 2019, but back in 2012 as well as later in 2016, he would run for president in 2 campaigns that ended in swift defeat. When making this video, he was still in the running for the 2012 election, but his words here were some of the most honest and open, yet controversial I have ever seen.
But you don't need to be in the pew every Sunday to know that there's something wrong in this country when gays can serve openly in the military, but our kids can't openly celebrate Christmas or pray in school.
Yeah, those were the kinds of things that he was saying. You're either very for it or very against it. I doubt there was much of a middle ground here. Throughout the message, Perry vows to end Obama's war on religion, he criticizes homosexuals in the military, and he says that he wants to make America strong again. What Perry said seemed to strike a chord with YouTube because although today you can't see the original video, you can see endless amounts of people reacting to it and responding to his message. And it's generally safe to say that most people on YouTube were heavily against what he had to say, and the thing is, this is one of those videos that immediately became out of date because once Rick Perry failed to secure the Republican nomination, it was just irrelevant, it didn't matter anymore, even less so after the election ended. So this is a video that's since become forgotten about, a dusty relic that I've dug up, but one whose original existence has been vanquished. Because, as I said, you can't see the original video anymore. It got a lot of heat, so perhaps Perry just wanted to delete it after he was eliminated from the race. This is a mystery to me just as much as it is to you, but my guess is that YouTube was once again responsible here. The only semblance of the original video that I can find is a 2015 entry to the Wayback Machine. Back then, the video had 9 million views and 28,000 likes compared to 810,000 dislikes. For this next story, we're once again taking things back even further to talk about one of the earliest viral videos on YouTube. One that I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but you might not know that the original video as well as the channel that it was uploaded on are now gone forever. Again, if you've ever heard of this video before, you probably haven't thought about it in about a decade, but there's a surprising amount to this, at least compared to other early viral videos. This video was uploaded in 2007 on a channel called Chris Crocker. This channel was owned by Cara Cunningham, who has since come out as transgender. In this, she's passionately defending Britney Spears' comeback performance at the MTV Music Video Awards, and to say that this video was an instant hit would be an understatement. At a point in time, this was in the top 100 most viewed videos on the site prior to being deleted, taking in over 205 million views on YouTube as well as 50 million on MySpace. Cunningham would go on the Maury Povich show as a result of her popularity and had her time in the limelight. By 2015, however, Cunningham would upload a video to Facebook explaining that the Britney video was in the past and that toxic comments had gotten too much to handle. And so, with 434,000 subscribers and almost 300 million views, the channel as well as all of its videos were scrubbed from the site. The Leave Britney Alone video was later sold as an NFT in April 2021 for $44,000, a sentence that's horribly dated not even 2 years later. And so it joins David at the Dentist, which sold for $11,000, as well as Nyan Cat, which sold for $600,000, and Charlie Bit My Finger, which was bought for more than $750,000. And therefore, even if Cunningham's channel was not deleted in 2015, I think there'd be very little chance that this video would still be around. Of course, it's hard for these viral videos to ever be erased entirely off the internet, but at least the original versions are now all gone. These YouTube artifacts, whether you know it or not, some of them are becoming buried deep under the surface. And this takes us to the earliest days of the site. We've gone from modern YouTube to the edgy days of the mid-2010s, to the early 2010s where the site was really starting to take shape, to the classic viral videos of the late 2000s, and now we're going back, as far back as you can go, to the very first video ever uploaded. Obviously, this was me at the zoo, uploaded by Javed Karim back in 2005. But if you've ever looked at Javed's channel called Jord, you might notice that he only has one video up there. Have you ever thought to yourself if this is the only video that he ever uploaded? And if so, why would he create a website that he doesn't use? The truth is that he did use it. It's actually thought that George would create more than 100 videos between April 2005 and January 2010. Of these, about 15 to 20 have been recovered and re-uploaded on YouTube. And though I'm not going to show you all of them in this video, I am going to give you a quick little rundown of what I found, what this means, and I'll also link a playlist in the description that has all of the found videos on it. Firstly, there are a lot of plane videos here. Like, it seems as though that George was a real fan of them, a real aviation aficionado. He also uploaded a lot of weird films and PSAs from the 1940s and 50s, like Anti-Communism Movie and How to Date. But the thing that I found most interesting, and I'm about to drop a bombshell on you, Me at the Zoo is kind of a fraud. Okay, before you hate me, allow me to explain. Firstly, although it will definitely go down in history, Me at the Zoo was not George's most popular video early on. In June 2005, his video Under the Bridge was his first to hit 10,000 views. In December 2005, his video Computer-Generated Animation of Water was his first to hit 100,000 views. Then in June 2007, his video Extremely Short Runway 747 Takeoff was his first to hit 1 million views. And believe it or not, it was only in March 2011 that Me at the Zoo became his most viewed video. By then, he only had 5 videos left on his channel, one by one deleting all of his others. By mid-2012, Me at the Zoo was his last video left. Another bombshell I'm about to drop on you is that though Me at the Zoo was definitely the first video ever uploaded on YouTube, what about the second? Well, there's a very real possibility that this was also a George video, this one titled Rolling Down a Hill, which was supposedly uploaded on the same day. It's hard to say for certain because this was almost 20 years ago and it has since been deleted. But firstly, this could have a claim to be the second oldest video ever on YouTube, and additionally, if this was in fact uploaded on the same day, if George just wanted to upload 2 videos, who's to say that in another universe, in another life, this was our Me at the Zoo? Did George just randomly upload these videos one at a time, or do you think that he had a thought process behind things? Because Me at the Zoo is obviously of much higher prestige. Rolling Down a Hill does the exact same thing as Me at the Zoo. It's a perfect example of where YouTube came from. And though I will always love Me at the Zoo, let's never forget about its aborted brother who is taken off this earth far too soon. Famous rapper KSI left his baby gravy on a crusty mattress. That was just one of the accusations made against KSI in an infamous diss track made about him by his friend Rotashaw. Fans of the Sidemen will know of this diss track. It needs absolutely no introduction for them. But in case you don't know about this song, it came as a result of the Sidemen's diss track war in the summer of 2017. I'll keep it brief because I spoke about this drama at length in my recent video on YouTube conspiracy theories, but the TLDR is that KSI decided to leave the group in the summer of 2017 and called out fellow member Bazinga, real name Ethan, as the reason that he left. He dropped a small diss track verse on Ethan, who then replied with one back. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, this man here, Rotashaw, dropped one on KSI. This wasn't in KSI's plans when he had left, and so he made one back at Harry, who then decided to drop an absolute nuke on KSI. From a song composition perspective, most fans seem to agree that KSI's track was a little bit better. He does make music after all, so he did have an advantage. When it came to lyrics, however, Harry absolutely blew him out of the water. Rotashaw's first diss track had such zingers as claiming that KSI had more abortions than good songs, saying that both him and his brother Deji were each more retarded than the other. He brought up KSI's infamous face, and then he called his girlfriend a world-renowned sket, which is British slang for a promiscuous woman, all of those among many other harsh insults. He sacrificed a bit of flow to the song for all-out brutality. KSI in response called Rotashaw posh and short. He said that his sister was a sket, he said that his girlfriend was a gold digger, and that he's inbred. And this was when things turned nuclear. Rotashaw's second diss track, titled KSI Exposed, did just that. It entirely exposed him, making a number of outrageous claims which, if they're true, could severely hurt KSI's image, especially now considering that he's essentially an A-lister. Even the opening line was entirely diabolical.
Try and roast me? That's cute. You lost your virginity too a prostitute.
And let me tell you, it gets worse from there. He refutes KSI's posh and short disses from the previous diss track. He claims that he's had chlamydia more times than he's charted. He claims that himself and his brother both slept with the same girl. He claims that he's cheated in the past, as well as numerous other embarrassing accusations, which would probably get me demonetized if I even reference them. This was perhaps the most out-of-pocket mainstream diss track on YouTube, and it couldn't even be refuted, as KSI allegedly got too angry with it while reacting to complete the video. That said, if even half of the stories in this diss track were true, it would make sense that he wouldn't want it to get out and would struggle reacting to it. A short while later, the group would reunite, with KSI confirming that the beef was initially fake, and so thereafter it would only make sense for Rotashaw to take this video down. Which he did. Kind of. The track isn't expressly deleted, but it is unlisted, so if you have the link, you can still see the original video. And with Rotashaw seemingly forgetting the password to his channel, having not uploaded in the past 3 years, it's likely that it will stay like this for the foreseeable future. Now at 14 million views, it's a skeleton in the closet of the Sidemen. But that's just one of the many stories I have for you today. For you see, I was in the park the other day thinking about all the videos that I have made this year, whilst also pretending that I was in a Wes Anderson movie, and I realised that YouTube's infamous deleted videos was not only my most popular video this year, but was now also the most viewed video on the channel. With this being one of my last videos in such a momentous year for the channel, what a better way to finish things off than by going back to a series that you guys all seem to love the most. These are YouTube's infamous deleted music videos. So just like the original, let's start with something a bit more recent before we gradually move back. 2021 is as good of a place as any to start, because that was when YouTube removed PewDiePie's diss track on CoComelon for cyberbullying and child safety. If you've never heard of this song, please allow me to provide you with some context. PewDiePie, as I'm sure you know, was at one point the most subscribed YouTuber on this humble platform, but in 2018 it became apparent that he was going to be overtaken by T-Series. Spurred on by PewDiePie's diss tracks, Bitch Lasagna and Congratulations, PewDiePie's fans weren't going down without a fight. Thus began the Great Subscriber War of 2018. In the end, T-Series would win the day. Its size was just too much, because although it spams way more dead videos than hits, it uploads about 20 times a day, it has more than 250 billion views, it was only a matter of time. So now, PewDiePie was the second most subscribed channel, but in 2021 he was about to get overtaken by CoComelon, the third most subscribed channel, who you might know for making content for babies. I've discussed CoComelon and its alleged effects on children's development in my video on YouTube Kids content, and in that video we talk about how it might not be the best thing for a young child to watch. PewDiePie once more tried to rally his old retired veterans from the previous war with a diss track titled Coco. In this diss track, PewDiePie, with a reference to Mr. Rogers, throws shade at CoComelon, using such disses as "your audience is just a bunch of motherfucking virgins," and "fuck your daddy, fuck your mummy too, fuck everything you love, most of all, fuck you." It has to be said that this diss track was straight fire. It was very well made, with a number of references and Easter eggs. But though it was widely accepted and praised by his audience, it wouldn't be by YouTube, who short after its release would launch a sneak attack on the track. Quoting The Verge, YouTube's team decided to remove the video because it contained imagery that was inappropriate for children, despite looking like it was made for kids, which many PewDiePie fans thought was a dumb reason to have it removed. This was a PewDiePie video. For clicking that it wasn't for children, that should absolve him from any kids thinking of watching. And the video was on YouTube, not YouTube Kids. Nonetheless, the track was removed by YouTube. In response, PewDiePie had this to say.
Yeah, obviously the music video got removed by YouTube, and I don't know if there's a place for me to address it. It's not during a live stream, but I also really want to play today. So I'm just gonna say I'm really disappointed, and I obviously disagree, but yeah, I'm not gonna address it further than that today. Sorry, guys.
He also said that he wasn't bothered to fight it because he didn't actually care about CoComelon. Now retired, PewDiePie is currently the 6th most subscribed channel on YouTube. But you know, that's old news. In truth, I'd expect most people at home to know about both of the videos that we've discussed so far. So let me talk to you about one that you might not know about. Let's talk about Squidward's nose. So this is Cupcake. She's a music artist with 2.1 million monthly listens on Spotify, with such hits as CPR, Deep Throat, Duck Duck Goose, and the now infamous Squidward's Nose. With a nightmare blunt rotation of song names like that, it should come as no surprise that there might be some zany wacky antics going on in them. But Squidward's Nose, it has to be said, had perhaps the most zany wacky mystery of them all. Releasing in 2019, I think a good way to gauge just how absurd this song is to allow me to read you some of its lyrics. My eyelash flew off when I saw that D was too soft. Need a D like Rick Ross, or Dora the Explorer, get lost. Get so much neck, it's wrong, that I should smell like cologne. Swallow this D, it's gone. He's searching for it on Chrome. His D smaller than my toes. Yeah, smaller than my toes. His D smaller than my toes. I'd rather ride Squidward's nose. His D smaller than my toes. Yes, smaller than my toes. His D smaller than my toes. I'd rather ride Squidward's nose. A bit wild, I can't lie. And then you look up the fact that it was actually supposed to be about Pinocchio, but it was changed to Squidward after Cupcake found out that Pinocchio is a kid. And then on top of that, there's the music video itself. I don't know how much of this I can show to you guys because Cupcake is topless and wearing nothing but clam stickers on her boobs. And then of course, we have to talk about the interesting parts because not too long after this video was put out there, it was suddenly removed. And if we look into things just a little bit deeper, I think we can understand why, and it is crazy. If you're able to find the link to this video and you check the recent comments, they skip from 4 years ago to 8 months ago. Therefore, it appears as though 8 months ago it was changed from private to unlisted. And if you take a closer look at the comments right before the skip, they all seem to be talking about Shawn Mendes. If we take a look on Google, news reports from September 2019 say that Cupcake claimed that she slept with Shawn Mendes. 4 years before now is December 2019, and based on the fact that this video has more than 6,000 comments, I have to assume that it was up for a long time before being taken down. My assumption is that this video was taken down in late 2019, probably around September, coincidentally the same time that people found out that she had slept with Shawn Mendes. My theory is that she took it down so that people on YouTube would not have a platform to discuss it. The song is still up on her streaming platforms, and I don't think there's anything too wrong with the music video for her standards, but of course, you can't comment on Spotify. Whether it be pressure from Shawn Mendes and his team, whether it be because she felt bad that people were now assuming that this was about the singer, or perhaps it was another reason and my theory is wrong, whatever the case, this is a curious incident. And the video's sudden disappearance, as well as subsequent re-emerging, seems to suggest there's something more at play. But if you thought the lyrics to that song were a little bit on the nose, that's nothing compared to the next song we have. In all fairness, you probably knew it was coming. Let's talk about The Mask.
I suck his dick with a smile for hours at a time.
Everyone watching knows Dream, right? One of, if not the most popular Minecraft creator of all time, whose online career over the past 2 years has taken one of the most notorious nosedives ever seen. Allegations of all sorts of things, people have been out with the pitchforks and torches for a while now. Even before the grooming allegations, a story like this illustrates the fact that backlash to essentially anything he did was constant. Initially released in 2021, The Mask would break the top 40 over here in the UK, but regardless, was treated with a sneer by audiences at large. Inspired by Dream's struggles with ADHD, the first thing that drew people's eyes were the seemingly on-the-nose lyrics, with such lines as, "The fact is, I can never get off my mattress, and all that they can ask is, why are you so sad, kids? That's what the mask is, that's what the point of the mask is." That line obviously tells us exactly what the point of the mask is. There is no room for different interpretations whatsoever. We know what the point of the mask is because he tells us. Many people would argue that this lacks subtlety and nuance and therefore is not good songwriting. Then of course there's the music video itself, which many people had an issue with as well. Once more, many elements of this music video entirely lacked subtlety and nuance. This is the type of shot that I might expect in a 16-year-old's first short film, but not in the music video for someone who's attempting to be an upcoming star. Then, the animation. We have to talk about it. I don't want to knock it too hard, Lord knows people already have, but many noticed a few oddities in the animation which made it seem a few minutes undercooked. There were a few glitches here and there, a few ugly screenshots that people roasted on Twitter. People were pretty relentless with this, and in honesty, it's probably the main reason that this song was eventually deleted. I should also bring up the fact that within this music video came the infamous pills controversy. Many people were up in arms about the fact that within the video, Dream threw his pills away. People critical of this thought that it might be an incitement to Dream's younger fans to do the same, which might not be the right thing for them to do. I mentioned it in my video on Minecraft controversies, but I'll reiterate it again. I for one don't believe that within this video, Dream intended there to be any sort of crazy ulterior motive. He's been critical of his meds in the past. Apparently this was meant to be based on his own experiences, but nonetheless, it caused an uproar. Dream's music ability in general has been questioned by critics such as Anthony Fantano, who said this.
Well, geez, that was more melodramatic than I think I anticipated it would be. I find the lyrics on this track to, I don't know, be a bit basic, almost like you're reading a junior high schooler's diary or something like that. So as far as composition, just genre styles coming together and general song structure, nothing really too standout or amazing.
Of course, Anthony Fantano's opinion is not the be-all and end-all because he does have a lot of stinky takes, but this is also to say that critically, The Mask was not acclaimed whatsoever. The comments were fairly brutal, as were people on Twitter, and so in August 2021, after months of remixes, YouTube poops and sus versions, Dream finally decided to remove it. And that tees me up very nicely to discuss another creator's deleted music. From one Minecrafter to another, let's talk about Wilbursoot.
It's not a felony, it's not even a crime.
Wilbursoot, if you don't know him, is a content creator and musician, perhaps best known today as the lead singer of the band Lovejoy, perhaps one of the most popular indie rock bands out there right now, and actually a personal favourite of mine. I unironically think their music is legitimately good. Therefore, it pains me to put him in this video, but the story behind his deleted song is actually very interesting, and it would be unfair of me to pick favourites just because I like his band's music. So if you don't know, prior to Lovejoy's formation, in January 2018, Wilbursoot was a solo act and released his song, The Nice Guy Ballad. Many of his most popular songs prior to him forming Lovejoy were very performative, with him undertaking a character who seemed obsessive, jealous, and mentally unstable. Tracks such as I'm in Love with an E-Girl and Your New Boyfriend are both examples of this character, with both songs incredibly successful, garnering more than 100 million views between them. The Nice Guy Ballad, though, was his first crack at this sort of character. Within the song, he discusses the concept of the nice guy, that being a male who believes that by being nice to a girl, he's therefore entitled to a relationship, despite the fact that he's only being nice to her because he wants her, not out of the kindness of his heart. Wilbur very much sticks to his character in the video with some quite controversial lyrics.
So why won't you show me your tits?
And that was just the tip of the iceberg, because at a later point, he then says this.
It's not a felony, it's not even a crime. Just wanted to make sure you weren't seeing any black guys.
That was the line that would later lead to the song's eventual removal, as a few years later, people pushed back against the creator for the lyric. In an interview with Anthony Padilla, Wilbur would say this about the situation.
I played the song live once, and this guy came up to me after the show, and when I thought that lyric was really crap, and I went, yeah, you're right. And I said, well, yeah, that was I changed it to seeing any other guys.
Despite some pushback though, on the video in which he discusses it, as well as the re-uploads of the Nice Guy Ballad, there are many black people who have come out to say that they don't mind the lyric, as Wilbur in this song is playing a character. This isn't something he believes in, it's the mindset of the nice guy. But having said that, at the end of the day, it was Wilbur's choice to make because it's his song. On the 20th of September 2021, the Nice Guy Ballad was removed from YouTube, likely never to return. And the idea of a music video never returning is also shared by our next topic. I simply couldn't make this without bringing up Jaden Animation's deleted music video, Empty. So if you don't know her, Jaden Animations, as her name might suggest, is an animation YouTube channel, and a very large one at that. With 12.2 million subscribers and 2.3 billion views, I'd be surprised if you hadn't at least heard of her, if I'm being honest. If you're a fan of hers though, you might have noticed that over the past year or so, one of her most popular videos, that being her Empty song, has been taken down from her channel. For anyone that doesn't know, in April of 2017, Jaden came out with a video, Why I Don't Have a Face Reveal, in which she shared her insecurities. In this brutally honest video, she explained that although there were other reasons, such as that she wanted to be judged based on her content and not what she looked like, the main reason that she didn't have a face reveal was that especially in the early days of her channel, she was going through a very tough time with her image. She developed eating disorders, forcing herself to eat very little throughout the day, finally eating properly towards the end of the day, and then purging the food. 1 year after her face reveal, in June 2018, she came out with a song that shed more light on how she felt at the time. Issues such as these are often private matters, and so at first glance, it might seem a little bit strange as to why she would have taken this video down. If you don't know this story, perhaps you might assume that it's because she wanted to take it back, or she changed her mind or something, but the truth is much worse. For you see, to make this video, Jaden teamed up with the now infamous Dave from Boy in a Band. If that name sounds familiar, you might remember him from my video on YouTube scandals, or perhaps you've heard the allegations that came out about him from another video on the topic. In 2022, Boy in a Band was accused of a whole slew of things. There have been many creators with much more thorough analyses of these claims, which I simply do not have time to delve into here. I apologize, it would just take much too long. So a TLDR is, and I'm going to read it from my script so I don't get anything wrong, is that a group of girls that knew him allegedly grouped together to write a letter towards him, alleging an ongoing pattern of abuse spanning years. These allegations have absolutely tarnished the reputation of a formerly huge name on YouTube, and shortly after this came out, it was no coincidence that Jaden removed the music video that he helped her write and that featured him from her channel. Perhaps she knows something that we don't, or perhaps she has a very strict code for what kind of content she allows on her channel. With this being such a personal video, I can't imagine that she took this decision very lightly. But regardless, as of December 2023, the video has now been taken down for about 15 months. But from one Boy in a Band feature to another, you guys probably knew this one was coming, so it's finally time to talk about iDubbbz's Rice Gum diss track.
But I got one question to ask you, bro. Did it feel good though?
Perhaps a few of the people watching this video might not be able to fully remember him, but this is Rice Gum. In the late 2010s, he gained notoriety on YouTube for... I don't know. To this day, I still don't know. I remember that he liked to flex that he wore Supreme. He obviously had the infamous mystery box scam, which I've spoken about a few times now. He also made a vlog in Hong Kong where he and his crew were super obnoxious to the locals the entire time, going as far as to be straight up racist, and YouTube would deem this video to be so far over the line that it was actually removed for violating terms of service. These sorts of videos gained him a lot of support, but also a lot of hate too, and to many people, it felt as though anybody needed to rise through the ranks and take him down a notch. With this being 2017, there was only one man for the job. In October 2017, iDubbbz created a content cop on Rice Gum, which for anyone who doesn't know what a content cop is, it was a video series of his infamous for its takedowns of large creators. This particular content cop had a diss track at the end of it that included a real who's who of creators who have since had huge downfalls. I mean, almost every single person in this music video is now either hated, doesn't make content anymore, or both. With bars such as, how the f does someone called Gum not realize they're in a bubble, and I'd say take the L if you could pronounce it, it's safe to say that this was a diss track with no punches pulled. With it being very well received by its audience, you might assume that the reason that iDubbbz took it down was the same reason as Jaden Animations. That being that it featured Boy in a Band, whose tarnished reputation has become one of the largest downfalls in YouTube history. However, if you thought that, you would be wrong. The problem actually lied with iDubbbz himself, who in the years since this video came out seems to have been visited by 3 ghosts on Christmas or something, because he's had a complete 180 in attitude and demeanour towards this sort of content. Many people believe that it has something to do with his wife Anissa, that she's some sort of succubus controlling his mind and making him repent for his sins. Others think that he must have had some sort of paranormal epiphany or something, because over the past few years he's gone from someone who would consistently make edgy content to someone who now seems to resent it. In May 2023, iDubbbz would come out with a video titled "I Miss the Old iDubbbz," in which he described as though he felt that he was an imposter. He felt as though he wasn't funny enough to carry the channel with his own wit and humour, and so he made edgy jokes to mask that, which people seem to gravitate towards. He profusely apologised to the people that he thought that he had upset with his videos, and announced that he would be unlisting all of his content cops. Within the description, he would link a Google Doc which has links to all of the original videos, so these aren't lost forever, but morally, it seems as though iDubbbz felt it difficult to leave these videos up on his channel for everyone to see, even if by this point, many of them were years old. However, unlike many of the videos in this doc that were unlisted but you could still watch if you had the link, if you go into this doc, you will see that you can now not access it. It was apparently removed for copyright reasons, so the original video now, it seems, is lost forever. And the same thing could be said about the video that we're about to talk about next. Perhaps you know this already, or perhaps you don't, but it's with a heavy heart that I must inform you that in May of 2023, the original Numa Numa video was officially deleted from YouTube. I'm sure that most of you at some point of your lives would have seen this video. It's internet folklore involving a then 19-year-old Gary Brolsma who danced in his chair to Moldovan pop group Ozone's song Dragasteya Dinte. Originally uploaded to Newgrounds back in 2004, this was one of the internet's very first viral videos. It was later uploaded to YouTube in December 2006, where it would only increase in popularity. Even back before it was uploaded to YouTube, the BBC predicted that Numa Numa had been viewed 700 million times, let alone in 2023, we're talking billions. The original video on YouTube clocked in at roughly 68.5 million views in the 17 years that it was up there, uploaded to a channel called Dork Daily, originally co-founded by Gary Brolsma himself. Back when it was founded, this channel was called the Numa Network. However, the channel's name was later changed to Dork Daily, as it appears as though Gary Brolsma left at some point, creating his own self-named channel where he would upload the clip once more. His version, however, has only 1.6 million views in the 6 years that it's been up. On the 11th of May 2023, a livestream was created on the Dork Daily channel in which a man, presumably a Dork Daily employee, claimed that Gary Brolsma had requested the video be removed from the Dork Daily channel for copyrights. Apparently, he had gone to YouTube directly, and himself and Dork Daily just couldn't work out an agreement. There didn't appear to be any bad blood between Gary and Dork Daily, but according to the person who deleted the video, Gary's mind was already made up. The video was going to be deleted either by them or by YouTube. The man also said that he assumed that Gary's reason was that he wanted the version on his channel to be the most viewed one on YouTube, which would make sense considering that Gary recreated the dance only a few months after. These are the last moments that this piece of internet history had. Its date with the devil decided, eternity waiting for it. On the 11th of May at roughly 5 PM, the original Numa Numa video on YouTube was forever deleted.
Going to Africa? Hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white.
That was a real tweet posted by Justine Sacco back in December of 2013. When this was tweeted out into the world, Sacco was on an 11-hour flight from London to Cape Town, South Africa, and likely didn't think too much of it. However, little did she know that while she was in the air, this tweet would begin to spread like wildfire. It was retweeted more than 2,000 times and favorited more than 1,000. Within a matter of hours, news outlets such as BuzzFeed picked up on the tweet, and there was even a hashtag going viral on Twitter, that being #HasJustine_landed_yet. Justine was going to South Africa to be with her family during the holidays of 2013, but this trip would change her life forever. 12 words, 64 characters. That's all it took for her to go down in infamy. Upon this tweet going viral, it might come as a surprise to you that Justine Sacco was fired from her job as the head of corporate communications at the New York-based internet empire Interactive Corp, perhaps better known as IAC. This company owns many large websites such as Ask.com and Dictionary.com, and so it's fair to say that Justine Sacco had quite a good job position. And it's also fair to say that as someone who worked within a company that harnessed the power of the internet, she should have known better than to post that message out there onto the web. Of course, Sacco had to make a public apology in which she said, "I am in anguish knowing that my remarks have caused pain to so many people. Words cannot express how sorry I am and how necessary it is for me to apologise to the people of South Africa who I have offended due to a needless and careless tweet." What might shock you even more is that included within the people of South Africa is Sacco's very own father. As I said, she was visiting for the holidays, and so South Africa is not only the place that her father lives, but also the place that Sacco herself was born. This sort of incredibly ignorant lapse in judgment is even more spectacular when you consider that, as someone born within the continent with close family ties to the continent, how could she post something so foolish? Was it meant to be some sort of joke? Maybe? Though many people did not find this funny if it was in fact an attempt at humour. This isn't even to mention that this tweet, which poses some sort of a correlation between AIDS and race, is not backed up by science at all. Rock Hudson had AIDS, Liberace had AIDS, that guy in the Dallas Buyers Club had AIDS. But regardless, this is one of the most infamous tweets of all time. It was quite a groundbreaking case in all of the wrong ways, so there's a fair chance I'd wager that you've seen or at the very least heard about it before. What you might not know though was that a few years later, Sacco was given a second chance at IAC. In 2018, Vox wrote that she was overseeing corporate communications for Match, a company owned by IAC, which includes online dating properties like Tinder, Match.com and OkCupid. Perhaps a lot of people watching this video might be quite outraged at this, but you have to ask, at what point should a cancellation be final? This news story was reported 5 years after the original tweets. If someone says something horrible online, do they deserve to be unemployed for the rest of their lives? Whatever you think, that's just the beginning of what I have in store for you today. If you want to hear about some of the most fascinating and controversial tweets that were deemed so scandalous they had to be unalived, that's exactly what we're doing today, so stick around. We're about to get into it right here, right now. With that said, I want to stick to the topic of regretted racism by discussing the barrier-breaking Melissa Villaseñor. If you don't know her, she's a stand-up comic, actress, singer and illustrator, perhaps best known for being the very first Latina to be given repertory status on SNL. However, this accolade is not without its controversy. I've discussed this type of thing before. I think it was in my controversial podcasts video in which I mentioned that essentially when someone gets cast on SNL, Twitter just decides to go through their back catalogue and they hyperanalyze their entire family lineage and videoed history. It happened with Shane Gillis when he was cancelled just days after being announced as an SNL cast member back in 2019 for some jokes that he made at the expense of the Chinese on his podcast a few years prior, also having been known to use homophobic slurs in reference to comedians that he didn't like. Well, in the case of Melissa Villaseñor, the same type of background check happened, though it wasn't as severe as it was for Gillis. After she was announced, people began to unearth some tweets that she had posted back in 2010 and 2011. Keep in mind that these tweets came to light in 2016, so they were made roughly half a decade prior, some of them even longer. What you might be quite surprised to hear, however, was just how many tweets Villaseñor deleted. What do you think? 5? 10? 50? 100? 1,000? Not even. It's thought that Melissa Villaseñor deleted just shy of 2,000 tweets. But there was some nuance. Just how racist these tweets were depends on what you think. Some of them were never archived, but as of the ones that were screenshotted, most seem to be jokes. My roommate's dog resembles an old Japanese man. I hate Mexicans on bikes. They threw something at my car. The world doesn't need them. Jolly black people are the best. Just laughed with one right now.
Co-worker at Forever 21 dates black guys and said she'll set me up with one for Valentine's Day. I said yes, but I'm scared.
Initially, both SNL and Villaseñor declined to comment, but back in 2018, after the heat of the situation cooled down, Villaseñor decided to finally explain herself. She said that she was just trying to be edgy and that she didn't regret deleting them. Many people on Twitter were divided on whether these were actually offensive. From what I saw, there were a lot of people excited that there would be a first Latina given repertory status, but they were disappointed in her at the same time. Others seemed not to care, as these were jokes at the end of the day. A few people pointed out that some of these jokes were harmless. Take the Mexican one, for instance. Villaseñor is Mexican-American. Of course, there were also some people who condemned others for reposting these tweets. These were made in the past. Villaseñor had just broken ground for Latina women, and before she even had the chance to begin her job, the very people that she just paved the way for turned on her. In addition, there were some news outlets that pointed out some slight hypocrisy, that being that Villaseñor was allowed to carry on as an SNL cast member, whereas John Rudnitsky, who also made some controversial tweets in the early 2010s, most of them being aimed at women, was taken off the show. Whether this was solely because of the tweets, it can't be said, but they surely didn't help. Villaseñor, on the other hand, lasted 6 years at SNL before leaving in 2022, and so in this case, her deleted tweets seem not to damage her image too much in the long run. The same thing can't be said about Kevin Hart though, whose dreams of hosting the Academy Awards were shattered when people discovered the skeletons in his closet. There's a fair chance you know this story. It was quite big when it came out back in December 2018, but just in case you don't, or in case you want a reminder, let's discuss. So on the 4th of December 2018, Kevin Hart is announced as the host of the Academy Awards, a very prestigious position indeed. He was about to follow in the footsteps as the all-time greats. We're talking the likes of Ellen DeGeneres, James Franco, Alec Baldwin, Chevy Chase, and Donald Duck. I wish I was kidding about one of those, but yes, Ellen DeGeneres did actually host the Oscars. Twice, in fact. What I'm guessing at is that many people who have been subject to controversy have hosted the awards, but back in 2019, the 91st event would be without a host for the first time in 30 years. Why? Well, days after Mr. Hart was announced as the host of the ceremony, it was brought to the attention of the public that between 2009 and 2011, Hart had been posting some very naughty messages on his Twitter. Many of the most controversial of these tweets were directed at the LGBT community. Back then, Hart was frequently using derogatory language in reference to gay people, using both the words gay and homo in a negative way towards homosexuals, as well as the F-slur on multiple occasions. These tweets were very common for Hart, and even though he would delete them all once the news broke, an absolute treasure trove was screenshotted and archived before he could take them down. Many of these tweets didn't exactly seem like jokes. For example, the one about his son playing with his daughter's dollhouse, was there a punchline there? Many people would argue, no. Hart was in his late 20s and early 30s when he made these tweets too, so compared to some people who had the defense of being young and naive, Hart really didn't have much of an excuse, and as a result of this, he was stripped of this opportunity. Interestingly, Hart was initially defiant about the situation and came out on Instagram with a post in which he refused to apologise. In the video, which is still up today, he states that he's already apologised for it and that these tweets were made at another point in his life. He says that he's a different person now and that he's taking a stand against internet trolls. If the consequence of that happens to be that he can no longer host the Academy Awards, so be it.
I swear, man, our world is becoming beyond crazy. And I'm not going to let the craziness frustrate me or anger me, especially when I worked hard to get to the mental space that I am at now. My team calls me, oh my God, Kevin, the world is upset about tweets you did years ago. Oh my God. Guys, I'm almost 40 years old. If you don't believe that people change, grow, evolve as they get older, I don't know what to tell you. If you want to hold people in a position where they always have to justify or explain their past, then do you. I'm the wrong guy, man. I'm in a great place, a great mature place, where all I do is spread positivity. If you're not doing that, you're not on my page.
On the same day, Hart would tweet out an apology to the LGBT community though, and made the statement that it was his choice to step down from hosting. For the next 3 years, the Oscars wouldn't have a host, and in these 3 years, the awards viewership took a nosedive. The 93rd Academy Awards barely scraped 10 million views, making it the least viewed event since records began. As for Hart, these tweets, many of which were almost a decade old by this point, cost him the opportunity of a lifetime. But so far in this video, we've had quite a few intense topics, so I think it's time to scale things back and relieve the tension as we talk about something a little bit lighter. This next one is a cautionary tale about sticking in your lane. Do you know about the infamous Rita Ora tweets? So this is Rita Ora. She's a now 32-year-old British singer-songwriter with a number of hits to her name. Her debut album reached #1 in the UK back in 2012, and she's had a number of songs reach the top of the charts, albeit briefly, in the UK and Europe ever since. Now, I mean absolutely no disrespect to Ora, but I think it's fair to say that perhaps the peak of her career is now in the past. But definitely at a point in time about a decade ago, I would say that she was a fairly well-known pop singer over here in the UK. In 2015, she would be a judge on both the UK version of The Voice and the UK version of The X Factor. And so you would assume that around this time that she would have a very passionate fan base and she would have people that would go to bat for her and all that. Well, maybe not. Back in 2014, on Halloween of all days, a message was tweeted out on the official Rita Ora Twitter account that read, "Dropping my new song on Monday if this gets 100,000 retweets." What would happen next though was perhaps the most spooky thing for Rita because absolutely nobody retweeted it. She had 3.1 million followers on Twitter, so in theory she wanted 1 in every 31 of those to retweet her post. In the end, just 1 of every 1,500 would retweet, meaning that she would only garner a measly 2,000 retweets on the post. It seems as though her audience didn't care, or maybe even worse, didn't want her to release music. This is where things get even spookier though, because after this colossal failure, Rita Ora goes on to tweet some more, claiming that she was hacked. "By the way, my Twitter got hacked. Somebody is threatening to release new music I've worked really hard on. Nothing comes out until I am ready. When it's ready, we will drop music. Luckily, I caught the hacker really quick and deleted the post. Thank you." Perhaps the most funny part of this was that her post claiming that she was hacked received almost more retweets than her post promising new music. Of course, you have to ask yourself, was Rita Ora being honest? Was she actually hacked? I mean, it is possible, but I don't think so. She says that she luckily caught the hacker really quickly. I don't buy it. Would someone realistically go to all of the effort of hacking Rita Ora just to put this message out? I mean, it would be a stroke of absolute genius, the highest IQ play possible, but I also feel like they would post something else too. I think that the most simple and therefore most likely answer is that she thought this tweet would go viral, but it massively underperformed and she was forced to come out with a lie to save face. If anything, it kind of seems like someone who asks out their crush over text, and then to try and save face after they get rejected, they say, "Oh, I got hacked," or "Oh, it was my sibling that did it as a prank or something." I mean, hypothetically, it's possible. I would just say unlikely. Still, I thought that was just quite a funny story to share. And speaking of comedy, that brings us to our next topic of conversation, because it's time to talk about the Twitter fallout that came from the Nickelodeon wedding of the century between Paige O'Brien and Josh Peck. This is Drake Bell, and this is Josh Peck. This duo is best known for their time on Nickelodeon together when Drake and Josh played the characters Drake and Josh respectively in the show Drake and Josh. If you're in your late teens or early to mid-20s, there's a high chance that you know them. The show, produced by the now infamous Dan Schneider, ran for 4 seasons consisting of 56 episodes between 2004 and 2007. Drake was the cool, confident and charismatic one, whereas Josh was the more nerdy, intelligent and easily suggestible one of the pair. As with a lot of shows that kids are raised with, people form strong emotional bonds with the cast members. To a lot of these children, the characters of these sorts of shows can be a real comfort and distraction to the weight of growing up. So if they were to hear that the cast members no longer keep in touch, or worse, have some sort of disdain for each other, it can be quite upsetting. In the summer of 2017, many fans of the show were shocked, saddened, or potentially even disgusted to find out that Josh Peck had married Paige O'Brien without Drake Bell being at the wedding. They thought that the two were no longer friends, and they were kind of right. Not only was he not invited to the wedding, but he had found out that they were married via social media. It seems as though he thought that this was a betrayal, with him posting, "Loyalty is key. Always remember where you come from. When you're not invited to the wedding, the message is clear. True colours have come out today. Message is loud and clear. Ties are officially cut. I'll miss you, brother." All was not lost though, as shortly after, it seemed as though Bell had a change of heart. He would soon delete those tweets and spoke to news outlets, telling them that he had been rash. He claims that he was cranky and was merely upset that it was through social media that he discovered that Peck was married. The two would eventually reconcile, and months later would be seen in a YouTube video on Josh Peck's channel titled Drake and Josh Reunion. This video would garner 13 million views, and it seemed as though the two had made up.
Holy come on. What's up, buddy? Is this happening right now live is this really right now live?
Stream live right now.
Oh my god.
Please
wait,
tell
is this
Facebook
streaming?
to be nice to me.
Oh my god,
Please.
it's not even my fault.
Just tell Facebook to be nice to me.
Listen, lay off.
Thank you. You heard that, Facebook? It's all good.
Chill out.
We love
lay
you.
off, man. Alright,
I got $100 for you.
Sweet.
What's the best?
This is real life. This is it.
Live right now.
You're welcome, childhood.
It just feels right.
Though, not quite. Josh would later come out on the BFF podcast to say that he had a soprano moment in which, upon seeing Drake at the MTV Music Video Awards, he demanded him to march over to his wife and apologise. Drake had tweeted Josh on his wedding day, which, as we've already established, he would later delete. But he also private messaged him whilst in a rage that very same night.
The dirty little secret, I guess, was like, I knew that Drake and I didn't stay in touch for the 10 years since we had made the show, but no one needed to know that. Like, I was happy to just die with that secret that, like, we made this thing that people really love, but maybe we weren't that close. Cut to, I'm getting married that night, and I see these text messages from him, like, cursing me out, coming for me. I'm like, on the night of my wedding. And I'm like, he's surprised, but then he takes to the internet and he starts writing these tweets that immediately, like, catch fire. And I remember that I was at the Video Music Awards, and I see him there, and he sees me. And I go up to him, like, and this might be the most Sopranos thing I've ever done. And I look at him and I go apologize to my wife right now. And he goes, okay. And he, like, made a beeline for my wife, and I see him do, like, this whole 5-minute performance of an apology. And it was like, I was like, go apologize to my wife or something bad's gonna happen.
The weird thing is though, Josh's recollection on the BFF podcast didn't really seem to match up to his vlog.
Come on. What's up, buddy? Is this happening right now live is this really right now live?
Stream live right now.
Oh my god.
Please
wait,
tell
is this
Facebook
streaming?
to be nice to me.
I mean, while it is possible that Josh Peck was aggressive and assertive towards Bell off camera, and then more playful and fake while on camera, there's also the possibility that he was lying in this instance and he was actually more genuine that night. You therefore have to ask, why would he lie? Why would he make up this false narrative about his former friend? Well, if we put things into a timeline, Bell tweets Peck in June 2017. 2 months later, in late August, Peck uploads the video in which the pair reunite. For the next 4 years, the two are once again friends in the public eye and talk positively about each other. In July 2021 though, Drake Bell pleads guilty to child endangerment, and less than a year later, in March 2022, Josh Peck once again speaks out against Drake Bell, seemingly trying to create some distance between the two. I might discuss this incident more at length at some point in the future. It's definitely one of the most fascinating tales of a former child actor out there, but it's not exactly appropriate for this video. What's more appropriate to say is that as a result of these now deleted tweets and their subsequent interactions, both Drake Bell and Josh Peck's reputations have taken severe hits. Many people deem Drake to be living in the past, riding the highs of the glories from his youth, and potentially even a predator. Many people found Josh, on the other hand, to be disloyal, two-faced, and potentially even a liar. But from one Josh to another, the story of 26-year-old Josh Phillips has become a landmark case in the United Kingdom for what it might mean for the future of online mediation. Why? Well, I won't dare spoil that for you. Let's find out. If there's one thing you need to know about Josh Phillips, it's that he is a huge fan of football. Or soccer to my American audience members. But for the purposes of my sanity, we will be referring to it as football from now on. Anyways, he was a huge football fan, but more specifically a fan of the football club Swansea, one of the biggest teams in Wales. He had attended almost every home game since the age of 4 years old, as well as roughly 15 away games each season, which is fairly admirable considering that Swansea had only been in the top division of English football for 7 of those years. Though, as you might be aware if you're a fan of a sports team, oftentimes the most passionate fans allow both their love and anger to become misguided. This is Michael Obafemi, a Dublin-born, now 23-year-old, and the son of Nigerian parents. Swansea City had announced that he was being loaned out to Burnley in the January transfer window, which had upset Phillips. Despite what you might assume, Phillips is said to have actually quite rated Obafemi as a player, and so upon hearing the news, he was quite sad. He drank his sorrows away with his friends in the pub though, as one drink turned into many. Hours later, and his sorrow had turned to anger. He would reply to Swansea's tweets announcing the transfer with a racial slur in reference to Obafemi. Within 20 minutes, he would delete the tweets, and days later would search up how to delete his Twitter account, but by this point his remarks had already been shared around the web. This is when law enforcement got involved. The message would be tracked down to his phone, and when asked, Josh said that it was a stupid mistake that he made while drunk. Phillips, who up until this point had no previous convictions, pled guilty to sending a message on a public communications network that was deemed grossly offensive, indecent, obscene, or menacing, and expressed remorse for the mistake. Swansea Football Club released a statement condemning the message, and the judge would also take action, sentencing Phillips to 12 weeks in prison, suspended for 18 months. He was also given an alcohol ban of 120 days, 25 days of rehabilitation, and 160 hours of unpaid work. He was also banned from going within 2.5 kilometres or 8,200 feet from the Swansea City home stadium when matches are being played. He has become one of the most notoriously infamous people on social media over the past 6 months. Being arrested a number of times for his activity on the internet, the story of Mizzy is one of remorseless crime and corrupt ambition. If you don't know this man by looks alone, you might know him by what he's done. Real name Bakari Ogaro, his backstory might help us understand the circumstances that led him to where he is today. The now 18-year-old Londoner was never a role model student with behavioural issues from at least the time that he was in secondary school. In an article written by The Tab, it said that he started content creation in year 8 when he would have been roughly 12 to 13 years old. The reason he started was that he was allegedly suspended from school a number of times. Perhaps his new hobby gave him something to strive for. Perhaps it gave him a purpose. For the next few years, he would follow down this route, making videos, but soon he learnt a fundamental lesson of content creation which would guide his life down a dark, new path. Online audiences, for the most part, gravitate towards the extremes. They want to see something remarkable, they want to see something big. Mizzy realised that every time he upped the ante, his videos would generate more views, and so that's exactly what he did. In pursuit of online fame, he pushed his videos to the max, and while this would perhaps work at the start, it was unsustainable. His first feature in the mainstream news would come in January this year after he was accused of anti-Semitism. He allegedly went on a one-man hate spree with Orthodox Jews as his target. He can be seen in 2 separate TikTok videos messing around with these men. In the first one, he blocks an Orthodox Jewish man's car and gives him an unwanted hug. In the second, he ran and jumped on a Jewish teenager's back. That same day, he also went up to a third Jewish man saying, "You're under arrest, give me everything you have." Though he made no attempt to actually steal from this man, this was purely a verbal threat. Then in another video, this one uploaded to Instagram, he's seen wearing a traditional Jewish hat and is quoted as saying, "I'm a fucking Jew."
Guys, I'm a fucking Jew.
Clearly this was targeted as all of these men were Jewish and these were all done on the same day. What I'm more shocked with though was that third clip, as Mizzy didn't record this one, the footage was released from a security camera. What this tells me is that even if Mizzy is putting on an exaggerated persona for the cameras, he still acts like this when they're turned off because he didn't know he was being recorded. He went out of his way to harass an innocent Jewish man for no reason. He was arrested afterwards, but interestingly, according to a JC article, by February he was already banned by TikTok. Whether it was because of this incident or not, or even if the claim was true to begin with, I can't verify, as not much is known about Mizzy prior to a few months ago, but I did a bit of sleuthing to get to the bottom of this, and can say that it's likely true, as if you look at the handles of his prank videos this year, it seems as though he's gone under the usernames Mizzy Isn't Banned and Secret Mizzy, so it appears as though even before this harassment of the Jewish community, he had already been banned by TikTok. It was also under these new names that he would invade a man's home, that he'd harass staff at a local library and rip up books, that he jokingly stole a woman's dog, and that he'd harass a group of girls at a train station at night.
Got some nice hair. It's nice and luscious. I'm perfectly fine. We're gonna die.
Over the past few months though, his name has been almost entirely forgotten about, and I hate to even bring him up here because that's exactly what he wants, for people to be talking about him and the latest crazy thing he did, but in complete honesty, I actually think it's alright because I believe that Mizzy will be forgotten about just as quickly as he made the news. Mizzy has obviously made many errors in judgment when it comes to how he behaves, but he's also made a huge one when it comes to his online presence. Let me put it like this. If your brand is to push things to the extreme, you need to push the extremes further each and every time. I think that Mr. Beast is a good example of this, where every single video it seems like he outdoes himself, because if you stagnate, if you stay on the same level, people will stop watching because you're not doing anything new, you're not taking it to that next level. And if your brand is that you're always going that extra step further, if you stagnate, if you plateau, why are people watching? Mizzy literally and legally cannot push the extremes any further. He's currently set to stand trial for his crimes, and it's likely that as a part of his punishment, he will not be able to post on social media. Unless he wants to do one big prank every few months when he gets out of prison, what he does is unsustainable, and with his YouTube, Instagram, and all of his TikTok accounts now deleted, it will be very tough for him to maintain his presence on social media. But Mizzy is just one of the many stories that we'll be discussing today. From users who have had their entire back catalogue deleted, to individual TikTok videos that have been erased from the public eye, in this video, we'll be talking about the most infamous deleted TikToks. With that said, let's move on to the next one that we have today. Across the Atlantic Ocean from London to New York, this is one that the Jets would rather you forget. This is Addison Rae. Back in January 2020, she was 19 years old and made this TikTok where she's dancing along to a song. Innocent enough, right? Well, for some reason, I don't know why, whoever was in charge of the New York Jets TikTok account thought that it would be fun to post a duet with her video, a duet in which when she bends down doing a bit of a slut drop, an American football comes flying out of her ass, kind of like an explosive dump, and right into the hands of a player who throws it. Within an hour of this video being uploaded to the New York Jets official account, it was unalived. Though, as the New York Jets would soon find out, once something is up on the internet, it will likely be there forever. This video is now firmly in the hands of the public, and it caused quite a bit of controversy. Without knowing the context, many people were outraged, and you might say that they had every right to be. I've told you who this girl is. She's a very famous TikToker and whatnot, and though she was technically a teenager when this video was shared, she was at least 19 years old. Many people didn't know this though, because of course they wouldn't. Not everyone knows Addison Rae, and some of them suspected that she might have been 16 or 17, which would have made this entire situation, which is already very strange, just that much weirder. Of course, some other people thought that it was funny, as TikTok has never been the most serious place, and many people thought that this was just the brand embracing the culture. Whether or not this is a good video is up to you, but the girl in the video, Addison Rae, didn't really seem to mind too much as she reportedly retweeted it. Even if it wasn't for all of the right reasons, this did get people talking about the Jets, but now their most infamous TikTok of all time is no more. And the same thing can be said about some of the content uploaded by a group of TikTokers who recently struck up a deal with the Shein brand. Let's talk about their now deleted factory tour. This story dates back only a few months to late June of 2023 after a group of 4 TikTok influencers were invited to go on an all-expenses-paid trip to Guangzhou, located in southeast China, to tour a Shein factory. Now, if you're not aware, Shein has been having a bit of an image problem recently, one that got exposed to the mainstream by a 2022 British documentary, Inside the Shein Machine Untold. Within this documentary, it was discovered that employees on Shein's factory floor work upwards of 18 hours a day, getting paid as little as 3 pence per completed garment, with many of them being paid as little as $20 a day, and each of them can be fined upwards of 2/3 of their daily salary for mistakes. I discussed workers' rights issues within Chinese factories quite recently within my Barbie video, which you should definitely check out after this one, but the Shein factory is just yet another example of this. Now, if these influencers had watched the documentary, they would know about this. If they had done any research whatsoever, they would know about this. I suspect that they did, but money talks, and these influencers flew out to China, did a factory tour, and generated some positive PR for the company, but this would not go down well at all within their audiences. Now, as a creator who's done brand deals myself, I guess I have a bit more knowledge on this than most people, so allow me to invite you into the secrets of a content creator or an influencer, if you want to use that disgusting word. But essentially, when a brand comes to a creator, they will pay hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands for an integration, and they will not expect to make all of that money back by people going into the comments and clicking on the link alone. It very rarely happens like that. What they do get, however, is legitimacy, which is less tangible than any data or analytics, but essentially what they're paying for in part is for a creator such as myself or such as any of these women or anyone else you watch on YouTube that has an audience to represent the brand and to say, I trust this. And as an audience, we have a connection, and the idea is that the audience, will trust the creator enough to then think that the brand is good. If this happens enough times with many different creators, audiences will just implicitly trust the brand. A stamp of approval from a creator can be worth thousands in itself, so even if the campaign doesn't go incredibly well, it's kind of sown the seeds for something later, perhaps future purchases. And once that bond is broken between audience and creator, if you were to represent a brand like Shein, who are known to be doing some shady things, it can be very much problematic. All of the creators who made ads for established titles were exposed as people who don't really look into the companies that they work for and represent. I personally know a few of these creators, and at least as of the ones that I know, they didn't do this maliciously, but they were caught sleeping. These creators, I suspect, were paid absolute tons, I'm thinking tens of thousands, to go on this trip, to stay in luxury accommodation, to promote the company, and to lie to their audiences. They took the bait and they took the cash. And it gets even worse when you look at these creators, because this incident absolutely annihilated their image. I am only going to talk about one of these women at length because she was definitely the worst in terms of trying to defend her position, but let it be known that all of these women were just as bad as each other. Danny Carbonari made a vlog on it, which is still up on YouTube, I assume for contractual reasons, but all of the women that go on this trip come off as absolutely self-entitled, self-important, egotistical, narcissistic. They come off really awfully. They're sitting around a table, a luxury table might I add, having a luxury dinner that's been paid for them, talking about how they've broken through barriers and broken down walls to get to where they are, and how they're this great, main characters and all this. Whilst they're representing a brand that is exploiting people for next to nothing, and they surely know about it. They surely know. And speaking of Danny Carbonari, she is perhaps the most egregious of them all. She's the one that we'll be talking about at length. She's a content creator, plus-size model, and body confidence activist. If you look at her social media accounts, she loves to be vocal in standing up for causes that she believes in, those mostly being women's rights and fat acceptance. So for her to go to the Shein factory where female workers are mistreated, to dismiss any and all workers' rights violations, to brush all of the allegations against the company under the rug because she didn't see it, and then have the gall to say that as a fat model she's underpaid 60% of the time, but in this trip, she was handsomely paid. It was laughable. I'm about to play a clip. This is the most hypocritical, egregious clip I have ever played on the channel. Play it right now.
So I'm just now making this video because I was in works with talking to Shein about how I can bring information from the brand to the consumer and how I can help them with debunking a lot of these rumors. We've come together, signed a contract, I signed a deal with them, and they have come all the way correct. So that's the first thing I want to note, is that they take care of their creators, and especially as a plus size creator, I am about 60% of the time underpaid, and they have definitely not underpaid me and taken great care of me.
Mrs. Carbonari, as a fat model, you get underpaid 60% of the time. What about these people? It completely undermines your point. She then went to defend it. She tried to defend Shein, and everyone just looked at her like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, the mental gymnastics you have to put yourself through to make those words come out of your mouth is insane. People were not happy with her, and even until today, if you look at her Instagram, the comments on her pinned photo are ruthless, to say the least. Carbonari would then only pour fuel on this fire as she doubled down, sticking to her guns and insisting that she knew better than everyone else because she had seen the factory with her own eyes.
I've seen stuff with my own two eyes. If you think it's propaganda, that's cool. Again, you've never been to China and you've never seen what's going on.
That's right, everyone. Forget the documentary that has visual proof. Forget every report that's ever come out about Shein. Of course, Danny here has seen it with her own eyes. She has seen one factory with her own eyes. She was invited in by them. Of course, you know, if there was any sort of workers' violations, they would just show it to her, of course. Many people have since called this propaganda, and it was. It was. I'm offended right now. These days, if you look for her videos touring the factory or defending her decision to do so, they have all been taken off the internet, never to be seen again, except for right now. It's strange to say, but these kinds of things are just par for the course these days. Growing up with the internet, people are exposed to content that's suited for older audiences way earlier than ever before. Just by the typing of a few keys and the click of a button, you can be on YouTube listening to the most disturbed and deranged serial killer true crime story in existence. The true crime genre has really taken a foothold within Gen Z. For one reason or another, young people tend to really gravitate towards it. However, this can often come with some unexpected downsides, as often the people who consume this content forget that it is in fact real. To them, the lines have blurred, which can lead to some very unfortunate incidents, such as the Jack Wright Jeffrey Dahmer cosplay. This story takes place just under a year ago, in October 2022, a short while after the Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix show was released. Netflix had another hit on their hands, and audience members were told of the brutal and ruthless crimes of Jeffrey Dahmer. For many of them who had perhaps heard his name but didn't know his story, to hear of his unhinged, predatory nature was a huge shock. His crimes were like something out of a deranged TV show or movie, but they were in fact real. This man was a serial killer, he was a sex offender, and a cannibal. Though his crimes were committed more than 30 years ago now, as with all tragedies, it's best to treat them with compassion and respect. So when Jack Wright uploaded his Jeffrey Dahmer cosplay to TikTok, many of his fans were naturally quite upset. He captioned the video, POV psychopaths drinking milk by itself, referencing a long-held trope of mentally unstable characters in media that drink milk straight out of the glass like the psychopaths they are, and these characters include people such as Alex from A Clockwork Orange and Homelander from The Boys. But his audience thought this might have been a bit insensitive. Jeffrey Dahmer was a sick human being, and his victims had family members, many of whom are still alive today. What happened to those boys and men was a travesty, but many people think that if you sensationalize Dahmer, if you turn him into a character, you almost fictionalize what he did. Worse yet is that people have pointed out the strange hypocrisy in Jack Wright being the one to dress up as Dahmer. If you don't know him by name, you might know him by face, or you might know him as the man that Sienna May potentially sexually assaulted. Just a quick recap for anyone who's unfamiliar with this. During a party in 2021, Jack Wright got extremely drunk. I don't believe I can show the clip in this video just because of YouTube censors. I really don't want to risk anything, but essentially a TLDR is that Jack Wright was with another TikToker called Sienna May, who apparently had a crush on him, and she's seen straddling him and making out with him. And Jack Wright is just completely out of it. He seems entirely unconscious. Sienna May would say that he did have some sort of consciousness. I think she said that he moved his hand, but based on the video, it doesn't look like that. It looks like he was just out cold. I discussed this incident more at length in my video on TikTok scandals, which you can watch after this one, but as I said, this did not seem consensual, and Jack Wright has since confirmed that it wasn't in a video that has gained over 20 million views. And then Sienna May did an interpretive dance apology, which was like really weird. That video, by the way, might have just been dethroned as the worst apology of all time this year. I didn't make a video on Colin Ballinger's toxic gossip train because everyone was doing it, but what were these people thinking? But I digress. This is all to say that of everyone on the internet to do a Jeffrey Dahmer cosplay, it's very strange that someone who was on the receiving end of SA would do it, considering that Jeffrey Dahmer did have a sexual component to his crimes. The video itself received more than 6 million views prior to its deletion, at which point Jack probably saw the negative reaction to it and thought that it might be best to take it down. Moving on, for this next one, take your blonde wigs off and put your tinfoil hats on, because we're about to talk about TikTok's censorship of climate change deniers. This is true. News sources started breaking in spring of this year, announcing that TikTok was done with climate change denial content and was now introducing methods to try and wipe it from the app. This sort of content is considered as misinformation and apparently undermines well-established scientific consensus about global warming. TikTok said that the changes would help empower accurate climate discussions and reduce harmful misinformation. This new change was launched on Earth Day this year and was symbolic to the Green Movement, but obviously it had its critics. As you might know by now, there is a portion of the population that don't believe in climate change. They deny its existence. If you're a climate change denier, this would be quite an authoritarian move because TikTok are censoring you. Many people released anti-vax content without it getting banned, many people posted conspiracy theories that could be scientifically debunked, but these videos still remain up on the app. Many people would argue that this was a step in the wrong direction. Others, however, have obviously praised the move, as it's very easy to become misinformed, and it's very easy to find yourself down some rabbit holes on TikTok that are unproductive at best and dangerous at worst. If you're a believer in climate change, it only makes sense that TikTok is doing this. Harmful misinformation spread to enough people is obviously not a good thing. Taking steps in keeping the masses informed and fed with factually and scientifically correct information is purely logical. But though this might seem like a new development, you might be surprised to find out that TikTok has actually been doing this sort of thing for a while now, so it's time that we discuss the full extent of censorship on TikTok. Please prepare yourself for some numbers and data porn because I have a bunch of facts and stats to share. If you're unaware, TikTok releases information about their community guidelines every quarter, so we can see everything about the sort of content it bans. Firstly, we can see that between July 2020 and March 2023, there have been progressively more videos deleted, though with a small dip in the past year or so. We can see that the number of videos being deleted via automation is steadily on the rise, and we can see that only a small percentage of deleted videos are ever restored. We can also see the reasons why content was banned. So the most recent quarter released was January to March 2023, and in that quarter, 30% of deleted videos were taken off because of child safety concerns, about 27% were deleted because of what's been called illegal activities and regulated goods, just shy of 15% were deleted because they were deemed to be sexual content, 9% broke graphic content violations, and then there was also 5.3% banned for harassment and bullying, 5.2% banned for dangerous acts and challenges, 3.1% for self-harm, 2.5% for hateful behaviour, 1.4% for extremism, and 1% for what's been described as integrity and authenticity. We can also see the countries of origin for deleted content within this report. The USA alone had almost 10 million videos deleted in the first quarter of this year, compared to the UK's 3.8 million, Canada's 650,000, Australia's roughly 800,000, Germany's 1 million, and the Philippines' 4.5 million. Then there's also a graph that shows us just how quickly TikTok reacted upon a report. 91.6% of the time, they claim to respond within 2 hours. Going even deeper, we can see the extent of TikTok's bannings today compared to years prior. Clearly, since the pandemic, they've been putting measures in place to ban accounts much more frequently than they did before. In January to March this year, they banned about 45 times the amount of accounts that they did compared to July to September 2020. They even included a list of covert influence operations in which they detail several accounts that they identified were attempting to spread propaganda. Even more surprising to me is that they've included data on government removal requests. Every now and then, governments over the past few years have contacted TikTok to try and get videos removed for various reasons. And TikTok actually released the information about where these requests are from. So we can see that the USA requested that 11 TikToks be removed, and they were, 27% of the time. Russia, on the other hand, had more than 300 requests, which were acted upon 97% of the time. These charts tell us that TikTok is not only becoming more quick with its content removal, but the frequency in which these videos are being deleted is absolutely on the rise. She was being spied on as she took a huge steamy dump in an Airbnb bathroom. That's what's thought to have happened to a TikToker by the name of Kennedy allegedly back in April of 2023. You see, Airbnb has had a little problem in the past when it comes to homeowners abusing their powers to spy on guests. I covered one of these incidents in my video about banned Airbnb users earlier this year. In this instance, the people that were staying at this Airbnb were in fact being spied on by a homeowner in Comfort, Texas, who had over 2,000 pictures of his guests in compromising positions, having set up a hidden camera faced towards the main bed. Alarm bells were raised after the homeowner encouraged these guests to stand naked in a particular spot, probably not the best way to seem innocent, but upon suspicion, a male guest at the Airbnb found the camera. Naturally, the authorities were called, and the police found thousands of naked pictures of previous guests. This isn't an isolated incident either, as there have been several different versions of the same general story. And, well, you could say that a very similar, but perhaps even more interesting version of these events happened to a TikToker named Kennedy allegedly and her friends. According to The Independent, Kennedy was out with 14 of her friends to celebrate one of their birthdays, staying near Vancouver, Canada, when one of her friends said that she felt as though they were being watched. Initially dismissive, Kennedy and her friends eventually decided to investigate, searching every nook and cranny of this house for the slightest sign of evidence, and then they found it. As Kennedy explains, they found a very peculiar outlet that upon first glance seemed to be recording everything. As she says, she sends it off to the police to investigate it, and in the meantime, Kennedy makes this video. It blows up instantly, taking in a whopping 6.5 million views. News outlets then start picking up on the story, and Kennedy herself even goes on the news to tell her tale and to come out and spread this awareness, almost becoming the face of this sort of thing.
So many people are saying now they're going to look out for this sort of thing and be more careful, which I'm glad I could help spread the word about that.
But then something came to light that would blow this case wide open. Because as it turns out, there was no camera. After all of that, this was just an accidental hoax. The Sunshine Coast Royal Mountain Police confirmed that whilst this news outlet seemed like it was surely a fake, this wasn't the case. It was pointed towards the shower, it couldn't be used, and right there in the bottom, that looked like it was a camera, but at least according to a police investigation, that wasn't the case. This had just been a huge misunderstanding. The paranoid friend was just paranoid. The girls had gotten this one wrong. Kennedy had admitted to taking a Mondo Duke in front of 6.5 million people, all for naught. There were of course no legal actions taken against the Airbnb owner because after all, they were innocent. News outlets that picked up on the story had to provide updates, and of course, Kennedy had to take the video down as she had accused someone of doing something that they simply didn't do. Now, of course, this was just an accident. I don't think that Kennedy was trying to get the owner in trouble. She just jumped the gun a bit. Of course, this story shouldn't be a deterrent for people to search their Airbnbs just in case. But jumping to conclusions and posting these sorts of things before any legal conclusions have come out is obviously problematic too. But that's just one of the many deleted TikToks we're going to talk about today as we dive deep into this app, uncovering the worst that it has to offer. This is technically a part 2 to a video that I made about a month ago, a video that was deemed to be so offensive and vile that it was demonetized, so you already know it's going to be good. If you haven't seen that one yet, you can watch it before this one, or even after if you want. It doesn't really matter the order. But with that said, let's get right into it with a story about masculinity, betrayal, and backlash. This story dates back to November 2021 and involves a video that, if I'm not mistaken, is only 8 seconds in length. So yeah, we have no words, only 8 seconds, and all it is a video of this woman's husband crying outside, captioned, "Told my husband to go outside and take a big breath, and I caught him crying." Watery eye emoji, crying emoji. But despite its length and simplicity, it threw the internet into a frenzy because a lot of people felt as though this video was completely unwarranted. Many people disliked her terminology, particularly taking offense to the fact that she caught him crying. Many people also disliked that this video, for the most part, seems to be candid. It doesn't appear as though the husband knew anything about it, and so probably didn't have a say in the video being shot or uploaded. Obviously, the big overarching theme here is men expressing their emotions. A lot of men don't like to express vulnerable emotions to other people. A lot of men don't like to cry in front of other people, even if it's their closest loved ones, and so to force this on them, to many people, is wrong. Ask Men took a poll of males and found that 74% say that they cry in general, so 1 in 4 men claim not to cry at all, but only 55%, so just over half, said that they would cry in front of a woman. Most studies that I found claim that men tend to be just as emotional as women, but they just hide their emotions more. Many people theorize that this is a result of gendered conditioning from an early age. Many young males are told, boys don't cry. Many young boys think that it shows weakness, or is emasculating, and though it's hard to argue that this behaviour is always healthy, at the end of the day, it's a person's choice whether or not they want to show or hide their emotions. Personally, unless I'm crying at a movie, I might cry half a dozen times a year. Like, if you put a movie in front of me and it's a good movie and it's got an emotional moment that's been well earned and I'm just fully immersed in the story, oh yeah, like I'll cry like a baby absolutely every day of the week. But in day-to-day life, it doesn't happen very much. Like, it's kind of a rarity. And then even when it does happen, my eyes burn when I cry. I don't know if it's normal. I don't know if it's like, if that's meant to happen, probably not, but like when I cry, it's like a devil that's had holy water poured on it. It's just like my eyes burn. It's not good. And there are plenty of men out there who suppress their emotions way more than I do. This man though seems like he can, and though there was a lot of backlash, of course there was a fair amount of support too. A few people were saying that these sorts of videos should just be out there on the internet. At the end of the day, this is an authentic man doing something natural. These people argued that the only way for men to express their emotions more is just to normalize it. Nonetheless, the video was mostly received negatively, and after continuous backlash, Mrs. Gibson decided to take the video down. She and her husband then created a video responding to the criticism.
We have a very, I think, unique relationship, and maybe not a common relationship, but we have an unbelievable amount of trust for each other, and so I trust Jackie, and I know her heart, and I know that it was pure.
Regardless, the video would stay down forevermore, and though Gibson would stick to her guns, later coming out to say that the critics were trolls, that they were obnoxious, that they were repulsive, even taking to Instagram continuing to defend herself, this wouldn't change anything at all. But from a wife to a fiance, for this next one, we're heading down under to Australia and heading back to January 2022 because that's when this story is set. The main character of this tale happened to be none other than a blushing bride-to-be named Maddie Smart, who had what some people described as a harebrained scheme to contract a highly infectious and deadly disease. I'm sure you're curious as to the backstory behind this peculiar decision, so it's time to explain. If you remember, I said that this story was set in January 2022, which happened to be the time that the COVID Omicron variant was really kicking up. With each COVID variant, the virus became less and less deadly. By this point, many countries in the world were just kind of past COVID. Obviously, I can't speak for Australia, but over here in the UK, we had been back to normality for more than half a year now, but public opinion was still divided on whether we should be cautious or just get on with it. If you take a look on worldometers, you can see that this wave was by far the most infectious, but deaths had peaked a year prior. I'm sure you can remember, this was 2 years on from the initial outbreak. People had sacrificed a large portion of their lives to this. Obviously, with infections at an all-time high, many people knew that they were likely going to get it. And that's where Maddie comes in, because she was due to be wed in 6 weeks, and Australia had just announced that they would be temporarily shutting down indoor dance floors to try and curb the growth of this new wave. Maddie gambled that if she were to catch COVID prior to her wedding, she'd be able to go through with the event relatively unscathed. And so she went out to a nightclub right before they closed with the sole purpose of trying to get infected with a disease that is said to have killed almost 7 million people. And so, right before nightclubs were supposed to close their doors to the public, she decided to head over to one and throw it back once more for the road. She can be seen clearly breaking social distance, getting in extremely close proximity to several men, and even taking a sip of one man's drink. She decided to upload this video of her clearly trying to catch COVID up to TikTok, and that's when it began to blow up, taking in 121,000 views. And if you look up her TikTok account, this shouldn't be too much of a surprise. She made a number of videos in late 2021 and early 2022 where she seemed fed up with COVID's rules and regulations. The interesting thing here is that the reception to this TikTok was generally divided. Many people who were against COVID lockdowns threw her their support, as well as a few brides-to-be who could understand her rationale. On the other hand, there were a few people who came out to criticise her, with one user saying, "Sucks to be a healthcare worker watching this." Many people also pointed out a fatal flaw in Maddie's plan, which was that Omicron seemed to be a variant that people could catch several times. It could be that she caught it, and then prior to her wedding, caught it once more. That said, I think I could understand that if she had a bunch of non-refundable deposits, that she would probably take the risk. I only eloped my ex-wife Samantha, meaning that she-beast never got married, so I don't exactly know the ins and outs of it, so perhaps someone that does know weddings and stuff, someone that has been married, could let me know down in the comments if this was a smart move. A lot of people tend to say that wedding brain makes you a bit loopy. People wanting their special day to be perfect might make them do extreme things. And again, she did receive some support for this. Though, of course, as I've already mentioned, she did receive some backlash, and so a short while later, it seems as though Maddie deleted her video. It's not up on TikTok anymore. That said, it could have been TikTok that deleted it, trying to snuff out this sort of thing, but bottom line, this video has since been deleted from the app. But that was nothing compared to our next story. Allow me to turn your attention to the skincare brand Biore, who back in May of 2023 committed one of the biggest marketing blunders of the modern age after they created a TikTok, fully intending on getting people to buy their product by heavily referencing a shooting. Obviously a content warning here guys, this is a heavy subject, and though nothing is going to be shown and nothing too specific about the tragedy is going to be discussed here, we need to talk about this, okay? So this is Celia Max Brown, who in February of 2023 was supposedly on campus during the Michigan State University shooting, which resulted in the death of 4 people, including the perpetrator. It was a horrible tragedy, and it breaks my heart. But this sort of thing should absolutely never be normalized in any way whatsoever. Despite how common these sorts of things have been in the last couple of years, we should never accept it as just one of those things. Flash forward to May, and Biore would come out with an advertisement that would change everything.
On countless obstacles at me this year, from a school shooting to having no idea what life is going to look like after college. In support of Mental Health Awareness Month, I'm partnering with Biore Skincare to strip away the stigma of anxiety.
We want you to get it all out, not only what's in your pores, but most importantly, what's on your mind too. Anxiety in my life has come in waves. I found myself recently struggling from seeing the effects of gun violence firsthand. I've had to intentionally set aside time for prioritizing my mental health. I will never forget the feeling of terror that I had walking around campus for weeks in a place I considered home, with countless anxiety attacks to crying alone in my room at night. My message to you guys is that it's okay not to have it all together. Life continually changes and your thoughts will too. Do things that make you happy and know everything will work itself out.
This is 100% legitimate. Biore actually made this, and it's tough to find words to describe just how tasteless a lot of the internet found this to be. Many people were asking, what kind of late-stage capitalism BS is this? Commercializing this incident. Seriously? I mean, in part 1 of this video, I pointed out the Jack Wright Jeffrey Dahmer cosplay, which many people thought was insensitive. In a very recent video, I discussed the Halloween Cheese Cemetery mukbang, which a lot of people thought was insensitive. This is worse than both of them, surely. It normalizes these sorts of tragedies. It's discussed in such a nonchalant way. It makes it seem like they're just a part of everyday life, and perhaps worst of all, it tries to make bank off them. This partnership was made only 3 months after the tragedy. And I kid you not, it's almost funny. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if I saw someone laugh at this just because of the absurd juxtaposition between Celie describing her panic attacks and anxiety and her shilling this product. But anyway, the video came out, but it wouldn't last for very long because within 24 hours of it going up, there was, as you might expect, instant backlash. People were not happy with this partnership. The video was of course deleted soon after, but this is the internet, and a Twitter user by the name of Thomas had downloaded it, re-uploading it to his account, where it would be seen by 5.5 million people. Needless to say that Twitter went in on it. Advertising is all about connecting with the common human experience, and shootings are now one of them. This is so dystopian. This is dark. But not as dark as the blackheads this new Biore strip removed from my T-zone. This was obviously a media disaster for Biore, who came out on Instagram to apologise, stating, "We did it the wrong way. We lacked sensitivity around an incredibly serious tragedy, and our tonality was completely inappropriate." They added, "We are committed to continuing our mental health mission, but we promise to do it in a better way." Celie Max Brown also came out with an apology of her own, but by this point, the damage had been done. But from the infamous to the famous, our next story concerns Teo Cruz. You might know him as the man behind such hits as Dynamite, Break Your Heart, and Hangover, with the now 43-year-old having been a household name in the early 2010s. Flash forward a decade later though, and Teo Cruz would join TikTok, but his time on the app was short-lived. And if you go to search for his old account now, it's nowhere to be found. So where did it go? Let's get to the bottom of this mystery. If you aren't familiar with his music, Teo Cruz's biggest hits, Dynamite, Break Your Heart, and Hangover, were all released in the 2 years between late 2009 and late 2011. It's fair to say that with 3 big hits under his name, which to this day have a combined total of almost 2 billion streams on Spotify, Teo Cruz was, at a point in time, a very big name in the music world. But when was the last time you heard any of his music? Unfortunately, after these big hits, Teo Cruz found it difficult to follow up on them, and for years after, his music career was in a downward spiral. If you take a look on Spotify, his most recent releases have only hundreds of thousands of streams, a far cry from the hundreds of millions that he was getting before. So 10 years later, when Teo Cruz makes his TikTok account, people were quick to remind him that they think that he's fallen off. According to Cruz, people were relentless in their hate towards him, which took a toll on his mental health. At the end of the day, at least in terms of his music career, it's near impossible that Cruz will ever see the heights that he achieved during his peak. His career has surely seen its best days, and to be reminded that you're a has-been or that your life has peaked, to be told that you've already offered the world's best that you have to offer 10 years ago, one could make the argument that it's understandable that this took a toll on Cruz's mental health. Cruz described this like an ambush. He described it as toxic, he described it as mob mentality, and he also said in a now deleted Twitter post that he had even had thoughts of the worst. Cruz said that social media apps need more regulations to stop this kind of negative feedback loop from damaging people's mental health, and also admitted that he's not exactly the biggest fan of fame. He said that though the rest of the world might think that he's fallen off, he doesn't see it like that. Let's be honest with ourselves, fame is fleeting. Even the largest performers only realistically have a few years at the top. Most of the biggest artists in the world won't be there in 10 years, maybe not even 5. At the very least, they likely won't maintain their popularity. They'll be a decade older, their music will likely change, people will get bored of them, and the next generation will likely find other performers that they prefer. The same thing applies to YouTubers. Take a look back to 2013, and very few of the largest creators are still making videos. Even fewer are still as relevant now as they were back then. I want to rip your pee-pee out of its socket so that you can never reproduce again. Natural selection needs to take these weirdos out. That was the line of thought that a woman named Jessica Fernandez had back in January 2023 after she uploaded a video to TikTok exposing a man for glancing over at her several times and later politely trying to help her load her plates at the gym. If you haven't seen this video before, it went viral for all of the wrong reasons.
This is how to not approach girls at the gym.
I hate this. I hate when there's ladies. It makes me so uncomfortable. Feral, like feral. Just watch. This is the 5 adds 5 pounds. Excuse me? You don't have to do that. It's okay. No, it's okay. I got it. Thank you, though.
Most people that watched this clip concluded that there was nothing disastrous in how the man conducted himself, let alone disturbing enough to warrant you uploading this video of him up onto the internet for perhaps thousands or maybe even millions of people to see. In Fernandez's case, she had more than 600,000 followers. That number is potentially large enough to ruin a person's life. And one person who particularly had a problem with this was a TikToker of the name Joey Swole. He's an avid gym goer and a large creator with more than 7 million followers. Joey stitched a response to Fernandez's video saying that her clip was unambiguously cruel and callous to a person who was only trying to perform an act of kindness.
But it's very sad that you took an act of kindness, this man doing something for you, being kind, and turned him into a creep at the gym, trying to make yourself out to be a victim, which you're not.
Joey thought that the man wasn't staring, but rather glancing in her direction. It could be that he saw her phone pointed directly at him and that drew his attention. It could be that he noticed her struggling with her weight, or that he was just people watching. There is a big difference between this and the actual harassment that sometimes goes on in gyms. The problem here was that to many people, this seemed like a boy who cried wolf situation. If you're going to blast a man's face all over social media for being a creep, you need to make sure that he's actually being a creep. Swole's response has been seen more than 8.5 million times. These are the sorts of videos that could have damaging effects if they're not handled delicately. And not only that, but it diminishes the experiences of people who are actually harassed in the gym. What made it worse was that many people within the comments of the original video were calling the man a white knight, saying that he would never offer to help another man with his plates, which is a completely unsubstantiated assumption. Perhaps this man in particular has never once asked another man if they needed help with their plates, but a lot of gym bros do. It happens all the time. I've been asked on several different occasions by various different men if I needed help setting up whilst I was at the gym. I mean, look at me, it was always going to happen. For the most part, the gym is meant to be a positive experience because everyone within those walls have the exact same goals. They want to get healthier and they want to feel better about how they look. By bringing in phones and blasting these videos on social media, despite it being quite normal behavior, people like Fernandez are putting others at risk. Not only that, but saying that you want to rip out his reproductive organs and make it so that he can't procreate is unbelievably spiteful and callous. In the fallout of the Swole video blowing up in popularity, Fernandez was confronted with the fact that this video was a horrendous mistake to upload. She created a tweet longer explaining her rationale and apologising profusely to the man within the video. She stated that she had been a victim of SA in the past, and though it wasn't an excuse, it was an explanation why she acted the way she did, why she was so quick to jump the gun on this sort of thing. She reflected on the fact that both men and women deal with very different problems in the realm of the opposite sex. She also stated that she felt as though the jokes that she made in the video were absolutely vile, saying that it took a media firestorm as well as thousands upon thousands of people explaining why this video could be considered problematic for her to finally understand that this simply wasn't fair on the man. She announced that she was going to be deleting the original video in response to this, as it had no justification being up, but she also stated that she was going to keep the Twitlonger post up as to not seem as though she's trying to sweep things under the rug. She then plugged her fan house, which was a bit of a strange move, but nonetheless, for the most part, this was actually quite a good apology. It was much better than many of the other ones that we'll be discussing today, that's for sure. In this video, we're once again delving into the archives of TikTok to uncover the unholy, gaze at the grotesque, and witness the worst of what individuals, brands, and international criminals alike have to offer. This is the third part of my deleted TikTok series. There seems to be a real demand for it because the first two both performed extremely well, and I know that there are plenty more infamous TikToks left to be discussed. You don't need to watch the original two videos before this one, by the way, you can just watch them after this if you enjoy it. The order doesn't really matter. Also, very quick, if you happen to know about any other infamous deleted TikToks that I haven't yet discussed on this series, please let me know down in the comments, and maybe if there's a part 4 to this, I'll get to it then. With that said, from the cruel comments of one to another, Zach Krickenberger is the next TikToker that we'll discuss. And that's because last year, his distasteful comments about a small subject got him in a large amount of trouble. So if you don't know Krickenberger by name, you might know him by alias. The Tennessee-based healthcare worker is known on TikTok as the Sleepy Paramedic, with, as of February 2024, more than 1 million followers on the app. The chances are that at least a few people watching this video will be followed to him, or at the very least would have seen a few of his videos in the past. But did you know that in July 2023, he came under heavy fire for some comments he made about one of his patients who happened to have dwarfism? I think that instead of myself explaining what he said, it might be better to get this straight from the horse's mouth. This is what the Sleepy Paramedic had to say.
My partner and I had responded to a call for someone who passed away. When we got there, the entire family was standing out in the yard. They were grieving, as you would expect them to. When we got inside, we found the deceased person in the back bedroom, and this person was 3 foot tall. Not a child, but a dwarf. And everyone at our service had always said, you know what, you never find a deceased dwarf. We really think they're immortal. They never get sick, they never call 911. We've never seen one. It's kind of weird, I've never ran into a dwarf in 12 years of doing this job until this day. Anyway, we were very professional. We went and told the family, we're sorry, they're deceased, there's nothing that we can do. These are the next steps we're going to follow. We're going to wait for the coroner to show up. I'm in the passenger seat where no one can see me. My partner is in the driver's seat and in full view of the family. And of course, they're all staring towards us because someone just passed away. They dialed 911. They're all looking at us, making eye contact with my partner. Let me preface this next part by saying that yes, I am aware that I'm an asshole, but it was really, really funny. Knowing full well that we had to keep a straight face and knowing full well that the patient's family could see him, I played this song on my phone while staring at him like this.
We represent the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild.
I am not proud of my actions that day, but anybody who does this job knows that you never pass up on an opportunity to f with your partner, especially when it's an opportunity that rare.
As you might expect, a lot of people took severe offense to this and accused him of having a complete lack of empathy for the deceased. This man, regardless of his stature, had just died, his family were grieving, and he decides to whip on the Lollipop Guild song from The Wizard of Oz. Obviously, it's the song that the Munchkins sing at the start of the movie. What might surprise you more though was that there were a lot of people who came out in support of Krickenberger. Their argument for the most part relied on the idea that paramedics and first responders almost exclusively have very dark senses of humour. It's essentially a requirement for the job because each and every day of your life you're heading out into the world and encountering people who are on the very precipice of death. Some of these people will not survive, and sometimes it can get very tragic. Therefore, a lot of them will turn to very dark humour as a way to try and escape the pain that they witness. However, as Krickenberger would say later upon reflection, there's a right time and place to crack a dark joke. In sight of the deceased's family is not that time. This video would inevitably receive a lot of backlash. Many people with dwarfism came out to express their hurt that these sorts of things were said, and shortly after, the Sleepy Paramedics video would be deleted. Of course, it was only natural that he would later address the controversy, apologising at length for what he did. According to Business Insider, Krickenberger said that he received hundreds of messages, emails and comments expressing disgust and disappointment with his first video. He also claimed that he had received death threats. For a while, it appeared as though this controversy would be the end of the Sleepy Paramedic. In fact, at one point, his TikTok bio read, "Sorry guys, too many threats. I'm out. Be good to each other." Even within his apology, he alluded to potentially calling it quits.
The fact that I've got 700,000 people on here that log on to this app and listen to what I have to say. Maybe I just need to get off TikTok altogether. Or maybe I've become so fucking jaded that it's time to look into doing something different.
However, in the end, that was not meant to be. Roughly 4 weeks after this incident faced tremendous recoil, the Sleepy Paramedic would once again return to tremendous support from his community. Many people seem to come to the conclusion that while yes, he made a mistake, he wasn't actually a bad person. At the very least, people were willing to give him a sporting chance to come back into the fold. And that reminds me of a sporting tournament that was forced to delete a TikTok after people found it to be insensitive and tasteless. So the sporting tournament in question is known as the FA Cup, and for anyone who's never heard of this competition before, Americans, I'm looking at you, this is an annual contest held in English domestic football. It's the oldest national football tournament in the world, and according to online sources, I've been led to believe that the final of the FA Cup is estimated to be seen by roughly 500 million people. For context, the 2023 Super Bowl was estimated to be watched by roughly 115 million people, so the FA Cup is watched by roughly 4 times more. What I'm trying to say is that the stakes are high, the glory of the competition is even higher, but the fumbles are just as low. Back in December 2022, Stockport County played Charlton Athletic in the second round of the FA Cup. This game was a replay after their initial match ended in a 2-2 draw, and during this match, a Stockport player named Macaulay Southam-Hales went in to challenge for the ball when he was outmuscled by his Charlton counterpart. This led him to losing his footing, and he would crash at high speed into the surrounding advertisement barrier. In that moment, anything could have happened. When you're running at those speeds and with that power, it can be incredibly dangerous. And to be honest, Southam-Hales was actually quite fortunate not to come off worse. Stockport's manager, Dave Challoner, even said that Southam-Hales was an inch away from potentially fracturing his skull in the collision, going on to say that Southam-Hales had a whopper of an egg on the back of his head. But that didn't stop whoever was in charge of the official FA Cup TikTok account from posting the clip, which was dubbed over with a 1980s advert for a Nestle Crunch.
That's why I love Nestle Crunch.
As you might expect, this video caused outrage online, with people on Twitter in particular being very mad at the clip. Former Premier League striker and current pundit Chris Sutton came out to tweet that, "This is really not on from the Emirates FA Cup. There is nothing funny about serious head injuries." To make matters worse, Macaulay Southam-Hales' own mother would then pile on, writing, "This made me feel physically sick. What poor taste this was, and definitely not a joke when he ended up in the hospital. Just wow." Southam-Hales was left in a neck brace following the incident, but would eventually make a full recovery despite the scare. In a BBC article about the incident, it was stated that the FA had apologised to the fullback for the careless video, and as you might expect, it was later removed. It's always a sight to see when it's a company who receive backlash for their social media posts, But at the end of the day, these companies are run by people, and to is human. Though over the past year or so, we've been seeing more and more content that appears to be inhuman. Since March of 2023, TikTok has had restrictions put in place regarding AI-generated content. In particular, AI-generated true crime deep-faked minors. So let's talk about it. If you've got a TikTok algorithm like me, it's likely that you regularly witness AI brain rot on the app. Usually it's some obese professor dressed up in a suit with an Irish accent talking about how the class is about to learn about Skibbity Ohio Riz and open their textbooks to the history of how Baby Gronk became a Sigma able to speak to level 10 Gyats like Ice Spice. This is the kind of stuff I get on the regular.
Sushi baka waifu omae wa mo shinderu, nani? Ice Spice, you're looking kawaii today.
That said, just shy of a year ago, TikTok came out to say that it would be clamping down on AI-generated content in the wake of it becoming more accessible to the public. Something you might not have noticed, however, is that essentially every AI-generated character on TikTok is some sort of a grotesque abomination. They're usually some sort of a stereotype, more often than not morbidly obese, but have you ever wondered why? I mean, yes, these characters look kind of funny, they're so absurd that a viewer just has to stick around to watch, but another reason is that it's against TikTok's terms of service to use the likeness of a real person. Therefore, you can't generate AI of Kai Cenat and Aiden Ross talking about Rizonomics, you have to have an original AI creation of someone who doesn't exist. Furthermore, according to my source on this topic, The Standard, AI-generated material that depicts realistic scenes will also need to be tagged appropriately with the words such as synthetic, fake, altered, or not real. One reason is that people, when handed this technology, immediately take it way too far. Back in spring of last year, there was an arguably disturbing trend circulating on the short form app in which true crime victims would have their likeness generated via AI and they would tell the stories of their demise over TikTok. Many of these victims were children, and these children were victims of horrendous, unfathomable tragedies. And then some basement dweller would try to make money on a 2-cent CPM by telling the story of their death. These stories were also factually inaccurate a lot of the time. For example, in an article written by the Rolling Stone, they referenced an account called True Story Now. In one instance, this account told the story of how a true crime victim died, getting their name slightly incorrect, their race completely incorrect, and the age of their death off by about 20 years. There are some extreme similarities to an actual case. This is definitely trying to tell a real story, however, there are many small inaccuracies throughout. Whether this is carelessness by True Story Now, whether this is disrespect for someone who was already given no chance at life, or whether this is them trying to avert this policy, I can't say for certain, though I would hedge my bets on the former. The Rolling Stone article quotes an assistant of criminal justice at the University of New Haven named Paul Bleakley, who said, "They're quite strange and creepy. They seem designed to trigger strong emotional reaction because it's the surest-fire way to get clicks and likes. It's uncomfortable to watch, but I think that might be the point." These stories don't ask consent from the family, they constantly get facts wrong, and I don't know about you, but to me, they come off as incredibly disrespectful. This might be a symptom of a much larger problem, that mostly being the rules and regulations of AI and deepfake technology. We're at a point in time in which technological advancements are moving so fast, can we actually expect politicians to truly understand it? That being said, politicians aren't the only ones to misunderstand things. The common folk are just as likely, perhaps even more likely, to do that too. Case in point, Osama bin Laden's infamous letter to the United States, which has been absolutely blacklisted by TikTok. If you weren't active on social media in mid-November 2023, perhaps you missed this story which blew up in popularity for about a week on TikTok before the powers that be deemed that this was problematic and swiftly had all mentions of the letter removed from the service. Some context, if you need it, is that bin Laden, or OBL as I'm going to call him from here on out, wrote a letter to the United States that was published in 2002 that attempted to justify why he and his band of brothers did what they did. If you don't know what OBL did, there is a particular day in September in which we have a memorial for it. I apologise for dancing around this topic, but YouTube censors can be a bit weird for this kind of stuff. Now, for a long time, people apparently thought that he did it because he hated Americans and Western culture and freedom and all that, but there really was a lot more that went into it. And apparently, people didn't know that. Amongst many other things, OBL really despised the USA's attitude towards foreign policy within the Middle East. The States has been present in Middle Eastern conflicts a lot over the past 20 years, but also much before that, and they have arguably had a large hand in how things have shaped up ever since. Let me say, in case you can't tell by the sound of my voice, I'm British, and I don't want to be a hypocrite here, we are far from blameless either. However, post-World War II, America's influence on the world has been going up, only up, whereas Britain's has been on a very sharp decline. History lesson over, in late 2023, you might be aware that things kicked off once again between Israel and Palestine, and this is when people found OBL's letter to the States once more. Just to quote off Wikipedia for a moment, in the letter, OBL criticises American foreign policy in the Middle East, particularly as it applies to its support of Israel to justify attacks on American targets. It also employs anti-Semitic tropes. If you can believe this, a small number of people on TikTok saw this letter and later went on to upload videos saying that they could kind of understand where he was coming from. Many news outlets were criticised for arguably blowing this out of proportion, making headlines to make it seem as though the entire of Gen Z were just these OBL supporting lunatics, even though it was just a few. Of course, then everyone else started hopping on it. Ludwig, for example, came out with a video titled "Insane Day on TikTok," which was a risky title, essentially calling it a non-story.
That's not the storyline people want to hear, right? People want to hear TikTokers are now justifying the 9/11 attacks and praising Osama bin Laden. No, TikTokers are looking at Sam Sulek get fucking huge for winter. That's what the TikTok, I'm on TikTok, that's what they're doing. And not to say it's not happening, but it's just not happening at the rate that people are thinking it's happening if you were to just go on twitter.com.
If you want the other side of the argument, commentary YouTuber Achito then came out with his video, "Why Did Ludwig Post This?", in which he attacked Ludwig's video, saying that it was strange that he didn't condemn the people that said that OBL might have a point.
He spends more time in this video like downplaying the quantity of people posting these videos rather than actually saying like, yeah, although the amount of people making these videos is low, what they're saying is like disgusting, like the sympathy they're showing for like a literal terrorist is good. But he's not doing that. He's like, well, it's barely happening, guys. Like, just turn your head away. Don't look at these people. Ignore them. They're a negligible amount of people. But at this point in time, I feel like that's a weird take to have. Like, why not just condemn them? Like, let's say only 20 people made videos saying Osama bin Laden rocks, right? Let's say those videos have a total of 5 million views. That's like a drop in the ocean when it comes to, you know, TikTok views. But then all these other articles who are covering it, they're blowing it up even further. At the end of the day, why complain about the articles talking about the bad thing rather than like the actual bad thing?
All things said, this was only going to end in one way. If in a couple of years' time, Generation Alpha upload videos to TikTok, or perhaps whatever comes after that, and they found Mein Kampf, and they upload videos saying, oh, this was a terrible book, it was awful, and all that, but pages 45, 76, and 108 were absolutely incredible, entirely based, the exact same thing would happen. Some people weren't happy that this content was scrubbed off the platform, saying that censorship is dangerous and that we shouldn't be restricting information. Others, though, thought that the move was probably for the best, as the message itself could potentially be seen as dangerous. But as I said, TikTok was quick to make this content illegal on the platform, and so that concludes that.
I'm a trad wife, and I want to say the N-word now!
That's something that might have been thought by a TikToker named Lily Gaddis, who in June of this year came under heavy fire for her use of the word within a cooking video. Within this video, she's discussing the concept of the gold digger. The idea that someone only wants to date or marry other people because that person they're interested in has money. It's usually associated with attractive women that don't want to work, so they exclusively look for men with so much money that they don't have to. A lot of the time, interviews with gold diggers are done on nights out at 3 AM outside bars and clubs, with these clips often going ultra viral. Well, Gaddis made the claim that the vast majority of women are not gold diggers, but said so in perhaps the most shocking way she could. She said that the women in these videos are whores or fresh off the boat immigrants. But even that was arguably not as bad as what she said next. Let's see in her own words what she had to say.
Okay, this time I have a beef with the male community. I give my criticisms to all because we are all about equity and inclusion here, right? So I'm sick and tired of all girls getting blamed, or like guys, certain guys, thinking that all girls are gold diggers. I don't know if it's because you get your information from those street interviews in like Miami at 3 a.m. outside of a nightclub. You're getting the opinion of some dumb whores and immigrants fresh off the boat looking for a green card. Yes, they are probably gold diggers, but that's the exception. I'm the rule. Everybody I know who's married right now, they're married to broke ass niggas. And they don't care. We don't give a fuck about your money. I couldn't care less about your fucking money, okay?
Obviously, this video would see her a tremendous amount of backlash. She just so casually slipped the N-word into this video, no filter, nothing. And when the rest of the internet got a hold of it, the clip was naturally going to spread around. This led Gaddis to respond to things, but what happened next would launch her into internet infamy.
So a recent video of mine seems to have upset members of a certain community, and all the backlash just really made me, just really do a deep dive, like do a soul search. And after all that, I still couldn't find a care.
That's right. Instead of apologizing or saying that she had stepped a bit out of line, Gaddis decided to double down, saying that she didn't care. Of course, this in turn made the situation blow up even more to the point where she was fired from her work at a care home in North Carolina. Her former place of employment stated a long message, but to summarize, they claimed that she was a new employee and that they did not condone her views. The post went on to reveal that her work was actually owned by an African American female, and it was dedicated to fostering a diverse, inclusive, and respectful environment. In response to this, Gaddis also had her TikTok account removed, as you might expect, hence why she qualifies for this video. However, while on the surface it might have seemed as though she had ruined her life because of these videos, in reality, you might even say that her dropping the N-bomb was actually beneficial. Today, she has more than 130,000 followers on Twitter, and according to the tab, actually thanked the black community for launching her career in conservative media. Today, she's very active on Twitter, building on what she started on TikTok. She frequently posts and retweets content that some people would deem as bigoted or offensive. For example, she referred to Muslims and Israelis as sand people, dropped the F slur, and once more dropped the N-word. These tweets were all posted within a week of each other. Nonetheless, while she's still very much active on Twitter, her existence on TikTok is no more, thus making the N-word video in particular, but also everything she ever made on there, now deleted content. But Gaddis is just one of the millions of people all around the world who have experienced their TikToks be deleted. And in this video, we'll be going through a few of the more interesting instances of this happening. This is technically part 4 of my deleted TikTok series. I've already made 3 videos about deleted TikToks before this one, all of which you can watch after if you haven't already. In the meantime, let's move on to a TikTok account that was deleted after a shocking truth was revealed to the public. This is Madeline Brockway. Back in 2023, she was living the dream of many. She was young, engaged, and extremely well off. She was soon to be wed to a man named Jacob Legrone in an event that many people were calling the wedding of the century. Madeline came from wealth. Her father, Robert Brockway, apparently owned a number of Mercedes-Benz car dealerships in Florida, and it seems as though the Brockways wanted to spend big on her wedding. You can see from the videos on Madeline's TikTok that no expense was spared. Weeks of festivities commenced in the build-up to the event, with the big day itself being held in Paris and apparently costing roughly $59 million. Of course, to live a lavish life like this is certainly going to get people talking on social media. Today, Brockway has 50,000 followers on Instagram and 77,000 on TikTok. However, for as perfect as the life of Madeline Brockway appeared, not everything was as it seemed, as only a few weeks after she tied the knot to her beloved Jacob, did news outlets report that Legrone was potentially going to see life behind bars. That's right, this perfect couple were hiding a secret from the public, as the Daily Mail reports that back in March 2023, after a night out in Texas in the early hours of the morning, Legrone and Brockway had gotten into a fight within their gated community. A neighbour alleged that because of this fight, the police were called, and once the officers had arrived, Jacob fired shots at them. He was therefore charged with 3 counts of a first-degree felony and faces life in prison under Texas law if convicted. An absolutely preventable, rash way to throw your entire life away, it has to be said. However, considering that this incident occurred back in March, Madeleine would have known about the potential repercussions that Legrone was going to see, and still decided to put all of this effort into the wedding. As this news story broke, it could be assumed that people insulted or harassed Madeleine. I mean, to get married to a person who could be facing life imprisonment within a ceremony that cost tens of millions of dollars is an interesting life choice, to say the least. Both the Daily Mail and this Reddit post claim that in response to this news leaking, Madeleine had deleted her TikTok account, removing all of her videos. And it was also discovered that she had privated her Instagram. However, this would be short-lived. This was one instance in which the deleted videos would eventually be restored, as today her account is back up and running. Her Instagram is also back to public, with her beginning to upload again from May this year. And according to her gram, Jacob is not currently behind bars, having been seen with her recently. But we can get even closer to the modern day, as the story for our next deleted TikTok is currently unfolding. This is the saga of Sky Wheatley's removed account. So Sky Wheatley, if you've never heard of her, is apparently a reality TV star and health and fitness influencer that is very famous on social media with more than 600,000 followers. On her website, it seems as though most of her content is dedicated to building a larger booty, with her having several books dedicated to the craft. As I said, this story is currently unfolding actually, and it begins with her TikTok account being taken down at some point in June 2024. For a person like Wheatley, to be an influencer means that having a large social media following is highly important. So she's been trying to fight for her account to be reinstated for the past 2 months. She made some social media posts about it when someone had apparently messaged her that they could get her account back. Relieved, she shared this news with her audience of hundreds of thousands. And I assume that she shouted this guy out in the process. But then, to Sky Wheatley's surprise, what she had actually recommended to her audience was a scam. This person was a con artist. And Sky would soon find this out, with a fan of hers DMing the influencer, saying that her boyfriend had been scammed out of $300 Australian after being hacked by this person. Apparently, Sky would have $300 stolen from her too, with this hacker showing absolutely no signs of mercy and taking no prisoners. Determined to make sure that more of her fans didn't fall for this ruse, she would make a video explaining that she had been slightly bullish, blaming this on her ADHD.
Hey guys, just a quick reminder to ignore anything that I posted today, which was a screenshot. Ignore that. I'm not going to say anything more because I'm too scared. But yeah, just ignore what I posted because I feel really bad now because I'm going through some shit. And I'm like, oh my fucking god, I shouldn't have posted what I posted, but because of my ADHD, I have what my mum likes to call knee-jerk reactions. So I do things without thinking it through realistically and rationally, if that makes sense. And I'm wearing my glasses because I'm paranoid about my eyeballs. And I'm going bald from stress. Okay, good night.
It's currently unknown just how many people were taken advantage of by this hacker. Flash forward to today, and Sky would give people an update on her Instagram, saying that she was fuming and raging, claiming that she had been on Instagram for 20 plus years, and she hadn't had the same issues on there. She finished by saying that she would get her account back, but that she was going to take a break. This break would seemingly only last a couple of hours though, because I went on her story and saw that only a couple of hours later she was continuing to post. Perhaps she was talking about taking a break from TikTok once she got her account back. I'm not entirely sure. Also, many people in the replies pointed out that it would be impossible for her to have been on Instagram for 20 plus years, considering that Instagram was founded in 2010. But that's neither here nor there. As of me writing this video, it seems as though her account might have been reinstated. I saw her post to her story asking if anyone had contacts at TikTok, which makes it seem as though she hasn't had her account recovered yet. But looking on TikTok, there is a Sky Wheatley account with almost 100,000 followers that posts fairly regularly and has videos dating back to 2023 and beyond. Maybe this was a backup account or something, with her now using this as her main account. With Sky having such a large following on Instagram, I think that might be the case. But for our next story, we're following along the same lines to discuss another female influencer who is known to be very beautiful. For our next story, we're setting our sights on Madison Beer, who was allegedly forced to delete a TikTok after people called her out for setting unrealistic body standards for women. In case you don't know her, Madison Beer is a 25-year-old American singer-songwriter, perhaps best known for her track Restless. She currently has more than 50 million listeners a month on Spotify and 20.3 million followers on TikTok, with an incredibly dedicated fanbase. She's clearly living the dream. But what would happen when some people thought that she was too perfect? Well, back in March 2023, she would upload a video of herself in a bikini onto TikTok, but after a short time, the video was deleted, with many people on the internet questioning why. The 5-second clip literally just consists of her posing in a bikini. It's got no audio other than a song, she's not throwing up any gang signs or saying anything controversial. This clip's removal was an enigma for a moment. It's since been revealed, however, that a possible reason this video was deleted was that within the comments there were people body shaming her and blaming her for the unrealistic body standards that society places on women. Now this sounds slightly strange, but please, allow me, a man, to educate you on society's expectations of women. I'm sure this won't be controversial whatsoever. To explain why some people thought this, a creator named Arcdelio made a video titled "This is Why I Hate My Body, Madison Beer." And within this video, he provided some screenshots of posts that people made towards Madison, saying that her being so beautiful was making them feel insecure about their own bodies. For the vast majority of women, looking like this is unattainable. However, Arcdelio and many of the people within his comment section was saying that the anger directed at Madison was done so out of jealousy, insecurity, and spite. Arcdelio brought up the hypocrisy that oftentimes, when women with bodies that do not fit society's standards of conventional beauty post pictures that show off their bodies, replies are filled with comments saying slay or gorgeous or queen, that typical response that if you have girls on social media, I'm sure you've seen before. However, when women that do have more conventionally attractive features do the same, such as Madison Beer in this instance, they're sometimes met with resentment instead. In the words of the top comment on that video, people want you to do well, but not better than themselves, because this makes themselves feel bad. However, if you agree with Arcdelio, blaming someone else for your own insecurity is not helpful, it's projecting. And in the end, this backlash might have been too much for Madison. Perhaps she deleted it for a different reason because she's never come out to clarify for certain, but jealousy aimed at the singer is currently the leading theory as to why she removed it. The video has remained taken down from her account ever since. Moving on, we're hopping from discussions about pride in appearance to pride in sexuality. Our next story features an Australian drag queen whose TikTok video was deleted after she reacted to a highly controversial decision to bring LGBT support over to rugby. This is Ben James, perhaps better known as Carla from Bankstown. Carla is an Australian drag queen who back in July 2022 had a social media breakdown after she had a TikTok video deleted. But to fully understand this story, I first need to tell you about a controversy in Australian rugby. In July 2022, an Australian rugby team called the Manly Sea Eagles unveiled a rainbow jersey in support for LGBT pride. Their crucial mistake though was that they did not inform their players before unveiling this new jersey, and some of these players weren't too happy about this. In response, a total of 7 Manly Sea Eagles players announced that they would boycott playing a vital upcoming game against the Sydney Roosters, citing cultural and religious reasons for this. The team would go on to lose the game, with none of the boycotting players even being in attendance. After this, the team wouldn't win another game all season, and their manager was eventually fired. Many people blamed the decline of their season down to this moment, and it also saw the players receive a tremendous amount of backlash, which is where Carla from Bankstown comes in. She made a scathing TikTok video calling the players gronks for this decision. She made the point that it's stupid these players are okay with wearing kits that promote alcohol or gambling, but draw the line at LGBT pride. Within this video, she's absolutely riled up and taking no prisoners. So let's take a look at what she had to say.
Alright, listen, but so it's come to my attention that if you couldn't already tell, bro, I'm pissed off, alright? I've just woken up, bro. Haven't even had a chance to shave my face, get my makeup on, nothing, bro, okay? I'm pissed off, alright? So first of all, I see on the news and all over social medias that there's an NRL, NFL, AFL team that, whatever the it is, bro, because no one cares about sport, that these players don't want to play because there's a rainbow flag on their jerseys, bro. First of all, we don't care. If you don't want to play, bro, then don't play, alright? How dare you? Who do you think you are? Oh, bro, talk about Jesus this and Jesus that, bro. Jesus made everyone in his image. So if he did, bro, then they're all sexy and hot as me. So why don't you suck my ass butt? The absolute disrespect towards the LGBTQAI plus community is absolutely disgusting, period. I've had enough, bro, alright? Who cares? It's a rainbow bar. Are you that sad and upset about a rainbow? Alright? And I know for a fact that half of you are probably DLs anyway. Alright? Half of you are probably getting stuck by a guy or, you know, someone else on the side. So what does it matter to you? Well, you think it's okay that you're allowing companies that support alcohol and gambling? That's fine. That's alright. But God forbid, oh my God, haram, God forbid that we support the gays. Wow. But get the over yourself, alright? No one cares what you have to say. No one cares about you. Quit your job, bro. Period. This is why queer people are afraid to come out, alright? This is why people in the media and people in sport, bro, are so afraid to come out, because there's people like you who are not supporting it.
Now, one of the interesting things about this incident was that it wasn't all just one-way traffic. Many people were in strong support of the boycotting players, so when a video like this came out, they might have mass reported it. This isn't confirmed or anything, but I'd suspect this to be the reason why Carla's video was removed from TikTok, because it was flagged for adult nudity and sexual activity, despite it not containing any. Carla would tag TikTok Australia in an Instagram post saying that this was ridiculous. She would appeal the video being deleted, but TikTok for some reason decided to double down and denied her request, saying that the video could not be restored. Once more, she would screenshot this and post it to Instagram, this time saying that she would see herself out. In fact, shortly after, Carla had posted to her TikTok saying that she wanted to leave the social media platform on account of its censorship. However, it appears as though she would only follow through with this threat for about 3 days, because on the 30th of July, Carla would upload again and has remained active on TikTok ever since. But from a protest on sexuality to a protest on race, this next story concerns a teacher called Lane Cogdill. Pronouns he, him, they, them, and Zia. Cogdill worked at a middle school in South Carolina teaching 8th grade, but later Z was fired after making some threatening comments in regards to the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, we all remember the 2020s BLM movement, right? Well, tensions were high back then, and while there were a number of people that wanted to use this movement as a way to make a difference for African Americans, to tell the world that their voices would be heard, others just wanted to use it as a way to loot and riot for the sake of chaos and destruction rather than for any meaningful goal. And in response, there were many critics of the BLM movement because of these hijackers. However, then a new voice entered the fray. There were some people out there that defended their right to commit these crimes, and you might be able to see where this is going. Cockdill was one of these people that decided to put out a public statement on Zia's TikTok, condemning the critics and supporting black folk that wanted to use the BLM movement to loot and riot, saying that it was their right to do so because it was black people who built the country in the first place. Even going as far as to say that if they wanted to burn the country down to the ground, they should be allowed.
Hey y'all, I got some thoughts about what's going on in the world as a history teacher who cares about racial justice. I keep hearing people saying, like, I understand protesting, but I don't understand rioting and looting. And let me just remind y'all, this country was literally built by black people. You ever been to one of those historic, beautiful cities? Built by black people, okay? Black people's bodies were literally the currency that our white founding fathers used to fund the revolution. So as far as I'm concerned, as a white person and as a history teacher, if your ancestors built this country, you have the right to burn the motherfucker to the ground. And white people, I'm gonna need you to do better because your opinion on this is at best irrelevant and at worst, literally propagating white supremacy.
Word of this video began to circulate around the school, and as you might be able to expect, the higher-ups were not impressed. This was not the first time that Cockdill had gotten in trouble for Zia's social media posts. Parents would find this post, put it up to Facebook, and the trans non-binary teacher that had been employed at the school for 2 years was reprimanded and later reassigned, with Mix Cockdill being no longer welcome at the middle school. Cockdill would try to fight the reassignment, arguing that this wasn't said in the classroom, asserting freedom of speech and claiming that they did receive some support, but in truth though, many people were horrified with these comments, and were apparently verbally threatening against Mix Cockdill. Parents also weren't too pleased that Cockdill had apparently given advice to children on how to hide their gender from their family, and apparently frequently ranted about systemic racism. It's very possible that many parents in this South Carolina school likely didn't trust that their children would be taught these topics correctly, with many parents apparently saying that the district course of action's decision was not harsh enough. The video where Z said that African Americans had the right to burn the country down to the ground is now deleted, of course, and it's been reported that Mix Cockdill now has a teaching job in Maryland. But weirdly enough, despite this incident mostly taking place in the wake of the BLM movement, most of the articles about it were written back in early 2023, and since then the reports have gone up dry. It was also around this time that Mix Cockdill would stop uploading to TikTok, with their last video being uploaded in April 2023. The comments have since been turned off, but it seems as though they were initially on, with countless people dunking on Cockdill, telling Zia to leave the children alone. Hey guys, if you're still awake and with me, we've finally arrived at the end of the video. Please make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would truly appreciate it. Also, let me know down in the comments what kind of deleted content you'd like to see me cover next. In the meantime though, if you're still looking for content to watch, then why not check out my recent video about YouTubers that exploited people's deaths? Or if you're looking for a longer video similar to this one, then why not check out my video about the internet's notorious banned content? I definitely recommend either one of these videos, they're both absolutely amazing. Click on the screen now to check them out. Aside from that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.